Hi, fam. How are you? We are going to have Yona on today, and I'm going to drop a link over here if I can. Say hi, Leo. What are you doing? Where did you just go?
I don't know what the hell I just did. I wasn't trying to go out of it. It just.
Wasn't it Control V that we had to do to paste? Oh, there it is.
I'll be right back.
So we are just gonna have a fun, casual night. Just hang out and see how everyone's doing. Check in. Yona's gonna come on and say hi and hang out with us. So that's exciting. I can't believe we're on episode 8 of Fearlessly Authentic already. That's just it's happened so fast. So exciting. I can't wait to have you on, Yona. This is gonna be awesome. And Peaches is in the background, being loud.
Used to think the world was flat. Really threw my hat into the crowd. I felt I had used up my quota of yearning. Used to looking on the children at night. Used to think the world was flat. Really threw my hat into the crowd. I felt I had used up my quota of yearning. Used to looking on the children at night.
Yeah, I had to share Leo's little video. He's just too adorable, and he always brings a smile to my face. We should be getting some people in here very soon. Get started with everything. Wow, the wind outside. I don't know if you guys can pick it up on the mic, but it's like shaking the whole apartment right now. So hopefully we don't lose any internet or electricity here. I didn't realize it was that stormy outside. It wasn't like that earlier?
No, it just started. Like just a second ago.
That's crazy. Yeah, I can hear it coming through the door and everything.
Oh my god. The wind chime is like shaking like crazy.
Is it raining?
No. Just a big windstorm.
Wow.
There's like a tornado happening with leaves. Oh my god, there's an actual leaf tornado.
I don't have any music set up or anything. I am feeling a little tired today, and the wind has completely distracted me. All right, hang on. I'm going to put something on here. There we go.
Woohoo! Hey, is this thing on? All right. I think it's working. Thumbs up.
Now, can you hear me now?
All right.
I had myself muted.
Sweet.
It just started
OCO, we
blowing
got
like.
I said OCO, got a hello, everybody.
Yona. Oh my gosh, I hope I can pronounce everything right.
There's going to be a quiz later.
Oh, I hope not. I was never good on tests. Well, some tests.
Well, honestly, there are a lot of sounds in English, like consonant sounds that don't exist in Cherokee. Yet, on the other hand, Cherokee has some consonant sounds that I don't think exist in English. Like, for example, the word for a tree, right? The word for tree is sluga, sluga.
Sugun,
Yeah,
like sugun,
flute,
sugun.
like HHL, flute. What you
Oh,
do,
wow.
you have to put your tongue against the back of your teeth, and then you let the air blow around both sides of your tongue like this.
Okay.
All right.
Flu gun.
So it's
This
like
is going to be
flute,
the episode that we make ourselves look like complete
flute.
idiots.
That's wild. I like it.
I know.
Teach me new words, Yoda.
He's gonna teach us things that
Teach me
don't
old
exist.
words.
He's just gonna make it
Sure.
up and make us say weird things, and we won't
No.
know.
He's been jiving us the whole time. Damn it.
Oh.
No, you can definitely go to cherokee.org or the other resources out there and verify.
He's not just
But
messing with us.
you know, when
Yeah, I
when it
did a
comes
couple of
to
those.
when it comes to teaching about Cherokee language, um, you know, there's basically three accents that are spoken.
It won't echo.
You know, you have the Eastern Cherokee, which is the older Cherokee,
Mute.
and then you have the Western
I
Cherokee,
think maybe.
spoken out in Tulip, Oklahoma, which is Otali dialect. That's spoken by most people, and that's what's taught at Northeastern University. Um, and that's also taught at Western Carolina University in Colorado, North Carolina. That's weird. There's like a delay on what I'm hearing back in my thing here. Anyhow, must be a delay. Just a second.
Sorry, hang on. We're
There we
trying to
go.
get a set of
No,
headphones here.
it's because I had the YouTube playing. and there's the U-turn.
Oh,
So,
okay.
anyways, I fixed it.
Cool.
So, anyways, there's
So where is your
today.
territory though? Like the Cherokee territory? Like where does it kind of like
Okay, originally the Cherokee territory, at the time of first contact by Europeans, which would have been the Hernando de Soto expedition in the 1540s, and at that time, the Cherokee Nation included most of South Carolina and North Carolina, about half of Virginia, the southern half of West Virginia, virtually all of Kentucky and Tennessee, as well as a tiny portion of northeastern Mississippi and northern Alabama, and then over half of Georgia. And then over time, we were basically forced into just a tiny cluster in northern Georgia bordering Tennessee and North Carolina, which is, of course, the Smoky Mountains. And then, unfortunately, one day near Dalton, Georgia, just north of Atlanta, Georgia, a Cherokee boy found a huge, shiny yellow rock that turned out to be pure gold. And that sparked the northern Georgia gold rush. And that's what precipitated our Trail of Tears to Oklahoma, because when they found out there was gold beneath the one little pocket of land that they had forced all of the Cherokee to live upon, turned out was full of gold. So we had to go. We had to go. And ironically, I believe it's the first time you see documented in history, in actual writing, when President Andrew Jackson ordered General Winfield Scott to begin the Cherokee removal. Granted, after John Marshall, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States, had ruled in our favor and said that the Cherokee Removal Act was unconstitutional, but President Jackson, Old Hickory, basically told him to eat a bag of dicks and said he's already got troops on the way. How many troops does the Supreme Court have? Because I've already got 2,000 on the way. So General Winfield Scott then wrote down his first famous order where he said, we must endeavor to concentrate the Cherokees into camps for removal. And so the first official concentration camp of humans was near Red Bowling Springs, Red Clay, Tennessee, which is just outside of Chattanooga. And that's 1836. And from there, we were, because that was one of the main camps where we were all rounded up. And of course, there were other tribes of the Southeast that were sent down the very same trails as Tears. I speak of the Chickasaw, the Choctaw, the Muskogee, the Seminole, Uchis, Lumbees. I mean, it was, cleaning out all of the Southeast United States as best they could with Indians. And of course, the Seminole tribe down in Florida put up a real tough fight. And in fact, a lot of people don't know about the story of the first Megxit, as in Mexican exit, because I've seen Derek Bros and some other people talking about, exiting to Mexico or Megxit for short, sure. Right?
Yeah.
And the first Megxit, interestingly, was when, Bob Marley's people down in Jamaica, they of course, they got that awesome Jamaican accent, right? That patois, me get irie with ya. And we all love Bob Marley music. And the slaves.
Like a reggae boy, what I'm saying.
So the connection is called Maroons, Maroon. A maroon was a British term for the slaves that went bush, right? They escaped from the plantation and they go up in the middle of Jamaica. Well, they've done the same in other islands, whether it's the Bahamian Islands or other Caribbean islands.
They call them all Maroons. Like anybody who escaped there and joined with the tribes, the indigenous people of those
Whether
lands.
you're talking
like
Haiti,
Columbus called them Maroons.
Republic, Guadeloupe, Martinique, Barbados, Trinidad, Tobago, Maroons all over, and as well,
Yeah.
there were
St.
Maroons
Lucia,
in Florida.
Windward Islands,
See,
all of
back
that.
then,
Yeah.
everything from like Tampa across to Fort Lauderdale and south was just the Everglades swamps.
Mhm.
That's before the, Gulf American Corporation and others went in with the big trenchers and dug out all the canals and developed it out. But anyways, at that time, Florida was primarily in the Panhandle, from like Pensacola across to Jacksonville, and then getting down around Osceola and Gainesville and Tampa. But it was nothing but plantations.
Mhm.
And of course, that's where you get the term cracker. Like, still you hear the term cracker for like a white person, but the term cracker comes from the Florida crackers, because they had plantations and they would crack their whips, and they were called whip crackers.
Mhm.
Florida whip crackers. And a lot of people don't know this history of the words, but I mean, words came from somewhere. Anyways, so
Absolutely.
these Florida whip crackers are cracking the whip on the slaves, and so we had Maroons that fled into the swamp down there, which is called the Everglades.
Yep.
And the Miccosukee tribe, they still have the Miccosukee Seminole. They still have a huge spread down there at what is it? Big Cypress Swamp, Big Cypress Reservation, off of the I-75 toll road.
Yep.
Anyhow, so you had these Maroons that took refuge with the Seminoles, and they became known as the Black Seminoles. They were Maroons. One of them was called John Horse. He was adopted by Coakeechee, and Coakeechee, that means wildcat in English. He's a Coakeechee Seminole, and Coakeechee took John Horse. They fought against Andrew Jackson, because it's that same period of time. You got the Cherokee removal and the removal of all the other Creek Confederated nations, which is, as I said before, the Seminole, Muskogee, and Creek, and Chickasaw, and Choctaw. And so John Horse and Coakeechee, they fight, and they win. They're kicking butt, man. There's more than one Seminole War, because they just kept winning. And so John Horse and Coakeechee fought their way to freedom and made it across all the way to Texas, and then down to freedom in Mexico, where they lived a long life and died free men in Mexico, where he's known as Juan Caballo, which is John Horse in Spanish.
Wow.
But
I never put that together. I've heard of that. I've heard that name, the Juan Caballo.
John Horse and Coakeechee, they led, I don't know how many hundreds of slaves from Florida and Mississippi and Louisiana and Alabama and Georgia. And because as they went, they just kept winning. And as they went, they fought more wars. And the Indians and the freed slaves, which they're called Maroons, just like Bob Marley's people in Jamaica.
Sure.
And these Maroons and these Seminoles fought their way all the way to freedom to Mexico. And that was
badass dudes, man.
1820s. So, I found it ironic, historically speaking, when Derek Brose is giving all these talks about Mexit, actually, there is a historical precedent here. Just follow the path of the Maroons. You know what I'm saying? Like a buffalo soldier. There you go.
Buddy.
See, it all ties together, man. It all ties together.
Yes. I'm gonna have to come back and watch this and listen to it again, so I can absorb the information that you're giving. This is awesome.
Totally followed that and knew all the names of the bands of indigenous people that he named along the way, and that anybody who was of indigenous descent in any island basically in the Caribbean was called a Maroon. It's wild. It's wild how that's all the same thing. And
now I'll tell you, what's fascinating is, because I've always been a sponge when it comes to history, listening to my elders, trying to remember all the stories about, the giant red leech and the moon-eyed people and all of our Cherokee legends, and, reading our Cherokee history. It's closest thing you can get to it in most English print books would be like maybe Howard Zinn's A People's History, or like trying, normally history is told from the cowboy's perspective, but there is an Indian perspective, and it has been recorded as well. We have our own receipts, and in the case of Cherokee, because we have a written language that predates discovery, or what we call first contact, because I mean, who discovered who made who,
Right. Who the fuck
But,
discovered who? He showed up at my door.
But like, it's incredible to me how much history there is that's just like, it's just buried and it's ubiquitous, and it's like right smack under your nose,
Right.
and it's all around you. But I mean,
That's where they wanted to hide. That's like why nobody's, there are so few aware of those things, because where they are, everything is hiding in plain sight. It's like obvious.
well, in particular, it's the language barrier.
Yeah,
You
that
talk
too.
about first contact and colonization, and what people often forget is the language barrier, and when I went to Spain, when I went to Ecuador and taught English down there for a year and a half, I finally got to read history in Spanish. Well, of course,
Right on.
when Columbus was sponsored by Queen Isabel and King Ferdinand of Spain, and they gave him 3 of their finest slave catching ships that had all the neck chains, what's it called? The neck collars and the shackles. Shackles.
Yeah.
It had all the shackles and the chains threaded throughout the below decks of the 3 ships that were given to Columbus, because Columbus had been catching and transporting slaves from Africa back and forth to Spain and Portugal for 25 years. So he had a resume when he went to the king and queen and said, listen, I know where to catch some more slaves. I mean, but when they talk about Columbus coming over, they don't ever mention that the Nina and the Pinta and the Santa Maria were all decked out below decks for hauling slaves. I mean, they went there to catch slaves. And, the reason why the Caribbean is full of, the Caribbean to this day is full of black people that speak Spanish, because Christopher Columbus, although he did not discover the Americas, he did begin the transatlantic slave trade. He made 5 voyages. Is it 5 voyages? I don't know. I mean, but anyways, when it comes to Columbus arriving in the New World, and then, what was it, the second voyage, when he brought over other people like Coronado and Ponce de Leon and all these other people you've heard of, as stories spread, and went back to Spain. I mean, that's why he made multiple trips. But all of this is in Spanish language. And so, I get to Ecuador and I see this painting of Christopher Columbus in shackles in a dungeon. And I'm like, whoa. And then it's supposed to be in Santo Domingo, which is Hispania, that's Dominican Republic. Right. I'm like, whoa, Columbus was in jail?
Yeah.
That they arrested Columbus? Well, so anyways, I'm immediately intrigued by this painting I see in Guayaquil, Ecuador. So when I get up to the school where I'm teaching at in Cuenca, Ecuador, up on the high top of the Andes there, where they roast the guinea pigs on the street.
Yeah.
And I'm reading about this history, man. And my mind was just completely blown because the Spanish had so many failed colonization missions where everyone was killed. Think of one of the most famous bridges in the United States has got to be the Verrazano Narrows Bridge, which runs from Long Island to Staten Island, right? And that's named for Verrazano, who was an explorer. And he was lured to shore of the modern island, I think, of Martinique, or maybe it was Guadeloupe, right in there, one of those Caribbean islands. He was lured ashore, and there were they sent banana boats out. They're like, hey, come on ashore. We're having a huge barbecue.
There's a party over
We've
here,
got
bro.
the coals going hot. And then they send out naked women on the beach.
Hell yeah,
And
throw them out.
so Verrazano and a small party go to shore to meet with them. And unfortunately, they like to collect shrunken heads. And the barbecue pit was for him. So
Yeah.
Verrazano died being eaten, apparently. But his name lives on a beautiful bridge in New York City from Staten Island to Brooklyn. So there you go.
Someone really gave a fuck about that story, like thought it was a raw deal. Like Verrazano shouldn't have died like that, man. That's just wrong. Let's make a bridge. You know? Let's just build a bridge in his honor because
And so you have all this Spanish.
shrunken
And I'm
heads.
reading this history in Spanish about Columbus and then about the expedition of De Soto through Cherokee country, through Chiaja after he meets with the lady of Cofita Cherokee. And it's just amazing, you know, to get the Spanish perspective and get all of this historical context, you know. And unfortunately,
that
I
is
get on.
cool. It's pretty
No,
cool to understand, like to see a painting like that of Columbus in fucking shackles and shit. You're like, wait a
I
second.
should tell
What
the story.
fuck?
Why was he arrested?
Yeah,
Why was
yeah.
Why was
Yes,
Columbus
I want to
in
know all the
shackles?
things.
So, interestingly enough, there is a phenomenon that Latin Americans call the Guacanagari complex, and it refers to Cacique Guacanagari, who's the chief. That's Chief Guacanagari of the Ayati Taino tribe, and Ayati is where the French get the word Haiti, and that's how you get Haiti, Haiti.
Oh, Haiti.
It's named after the original people who are a Taino Lucayan tribe, and that's the Ayati. But anyways, Chief Wakanagari was a Taino chief, and in fact, on Christmas Day, because it was in October, the end of October of 1492, when Columbus and the Santa Maria first sighted land. But it was an unoccupied small island in the Caribbean, right? Some say it was the island of Samana Cay. But it wasn't until December, around Christmas Day, I think it was Christmas Eve, when Columbus actually sighted mainland, which turned out to be the island of Hispaniola, which today is western half's Haiti, eastern half's the Dominican Republic. And so at the harbor of modern day Santo Domingo, which is the capital of the Dominican Republic, the Santa Maria and the Nina and the Pinta approach, and there are dangerous coral reefs and shoals there. Hi, kitty cat. And the Santa Maria struck a reef and began to sink. The Chief Wakanagari, sent out his banana boats and everything, and they rescued the men and brought them to shore. The timbers of the Santa Maria were brought to shore, and they built a wooden fort out of the timbers of the Santa Maria ship called Fort Navidad. I think some of those timbers are still there within the stone fort there, even to this day.
All right.
So that'd be the first building that Europeans ever built, at least from Spain. And Chief Wakanagari of the local tribe, he was immediately fascinated with their arquebuses, you know, their firearms and their steel armor and their dogs and horses and everything, and immediately wanted to adopt all of their ways and forsake the traditional ways of his Taino. And because of that, throughout Latin America to this
syndrome.
Day,
the shiny. Yeah.
And they have a name for that all across Latin America, and that's called El Complejo Wakanagari, or the Wakanagari Complex.
Yeah.
Where you're a wild bushman, and as soon as you see cell phone and sports car, you're like, man, screw all this blow dart and bow and arrow shit, man.
Yeah. I
I'm
need
up for
some Gucci
some
gear. Fuck these
some
flip
some some
flops,
coke and
man.
hose, man. Let's do it. I don't know. But anyways, from that context, you know, it's a shame. Usually, when I share the history on Twitter or stuff like that, I get all these people back at me like, oh, I bet you're so mad, and the suppression, and you know, white people are the enemy, or just all these different angles of hatred, or how
Trying
much
Division.
to
money do
trying to
you
find
think is
that hate,
owed
bring
to
that hate
you,
out.
or what do you think about reparations to the Cherokee and stuff? And I'm just like, I just want to love, and I want to be left alone, and I respect you and respect me. I'm just looking for mutuality, man. I don't know about this. I mean, the main thing is I try to tell everybody: love more, laugh more, live more, respect yourself, know yourself. I mean, I don't know all these war hatchets you're carrying around, man. I don't sharpen war hatchets. Actually, when it comes to a war hatchet or a tomahawk, the duller the better. I mean, you're trying to dent skulls. You're
Yeah.
not trying to cut paper. You know what I'm saying? But I
Yeah.
mean, it's
That's
just
true. That's the double entendre is fucking great because how sharp are you going to make it anyway? Like what is your end goal of having that sharpened war hatchet? Who are you fighting? The guy that you just met, who's or you're just finding a way to divide you from him? It's like
well.
one
Here's
or
the
the
thing
other.
about it. We have a friendship dance in Cherokee, the Cherokee friendship dance, and it's one of the oldest songs that we sing. And the way the friendship dance goes was, whenever we would fight in war against each other, you know, because it's Cherokee, we were originally an Iroquois people. That's why our language is an Iroquois language. Who are the Iroquois people? Well, you're talking about the Cayuga, the Mohawk, the Seneca, the Onondaga, the Mohegan, the Tuscaroras, who are from North Carolina. They went up and joined with them, and they live under the great law of peace that was given to them by Hiawatha. It's recorded
Hmm.
on the wampum belt, and they have the Iroquois Confederacy that starts out in order to form a perfect union and secure the domestic tranquility. And so when Jefferson and others read that, they were like, "Man, this is awesome!" Because our
That's a
our
badass fucking shit right there. Yeah.
our Iroquois, the Iroquois Confederacy Constitution lays out all these basic human rights that aren't found in English common law. And so when Jefferson and others read it, they pretty much copied as much of it as that they could. But of course, they're like, well, in order to form a more perfect union.
Right.
And so, I don't know how you make more than perfect. I mean, kind of
Adjectives, man.
the conceit is baked into the document from the
Yeah.
first word. They copied
Yeah.
everything from somebody else, but they're going to be even more than perfect. All these slave owners that are talking about all men are created equal, never mind the women and children. But
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, the sentiment is lovely. It's a very romantic idea. It's like, yeah,
it's the
that's
Native
beautiful.
American natural law and the Native American natural rights of man that
Right.
shines through the Constitution. That is that idealism that they were paying lip service or quill service to. But,
Sure.
you know, um, long story short, we migrated south from the Finger Lakes region. That would be upstate New
Sure.
York,
I know
you
that
know.
area.
And
We ain't far from there.
and so we moved down through the Ohio Valley and into the Tennessee and Hiawassee and uh, New River Canal Valley, and there were other tribes living there, and we fought many wars, particularly with the Yuchi and the Anichata, right, the Choctaw and the Anichikasaw, Chickasaw, and um, a lot of the famous warriors that fought in these battles are women, like Nancy Ward, Nani Yehi. She fought at uh, big. I think her husband was wounded. And she picked up his rifle and ran the rest of them off. But anyways, after all these battles, typically, they were mainly fought with war clubs, And when it got to be late in the day, um, you know, we weren't really trying to kill everybody. It's kind of more like a fist fight or a brawl. And then at the end of the day, make a big fire, and all the different tribes and all the men fighting there would start dancing around in the big circle, and we'd start singing the friendship song and have a big meal, and lick our wounds and go our own ways. And that's because it's like there was an honor and an order to the way that wars were fought. And I mean, they were typically spats over, like, some daughter or woman being abducted and then uh, forcibly married.
Right.
There's a nice euphemism for you there. Forcibly married, kind of like when Pocahontas was abducted and happily wed to John
Happily
Rolfe.
wed. Yes. It's all semantics, man. Yeah.
But I was talking about the
I always
language.
thought that whole idea that you just like the journey from those Finger Lakes down through that, like, all this, like, the richest part of America, like, fucking land wise, like, just gorgeous mountains and
Well, from North
prairies and just,
America,
you know,
you're
the
talking
whole
about, right?
I'm talking from, like, upstate New York down through Ohio River Valley all the way to Tennessee, North Carolina.
Well, the Cherokee have always been in the Appalachian Mountains. It's just that they just kind of migrated down
it's
the
just like where in the
Appalachian Mountain
mountains?
chain. Because as you know, the Appalachians run from New Hampshire to Georgia.
Yeah. Yep. I know a couple of my friends have hiked that.
Oh, they've done the AT?
Yeah. Like long ass fucking, over shitty weather and just crazy, but it's like beautiful. I'm like, damn.
Yeah, if you've hiked the
Maybe I'll do that
AT, man,
someday.
you're getting into that Mohican kind of life, man.
Yeah, these are people who, like, they work for part of the year to save enough money so that they can do that, and go on these crazy long treks, and just walk.
Did you see what Cirrus said? The Cherokee tribal oak is here in Tulsa.
Wow.
Yes. What up, Cirrus?
It's downtown, about 5 miles.
Now, what's awesome, we just had a recent court case ruling in the federal court in, I think it was the Supreme Court ruling, in fact, that said that our initial treaty lands that were signed to at the conclusion or at the terminus of the Trail of Tears when we arrived at Oklahoma, along with the other tribes, the Muskogee and the Choctaw and the Chickasaw, the Miami and other, numerous tribes were all moved to Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Down the Trail of Tears.
Like the
not
first
just Cherokee. It was just waves after wave after wave. And there was even more than just one particular trail. Although they all did, there was a confluence of all the trails through the choke point at Cairo, Illinois. But anyhow, the point being, when we got to Oklahoma, there were treaties that we initially signed with the U.S. government in the Indian Territory. And, this was Cherokee territory. This was Miami territory. This was Muskogee territory, right? And but then there was the Dawes Allotment Act, DAWES, in the 1890, I think. And that basically was like, kind of like think of the West Bank of Palestine after 1967, and they just start like building colonies everywhere inside of Palestinian land. Well, that's what the Dawes Allotment Act was. It allowed them to go in the middle of the Cherokee Res, in the middle of the Seminole Res, and just buy land and start, building Walmarts or whatever. I'm not in 1890, but I mean, picture, if you will, that's actually when they lined up settlers on a line and then fired a gun, and then they all run off to claim 40 acres and get a meal of Cherokee land or Miami land or whatever. And so then they tried to say with the Indian Reorganization Act under tribal government that they only had tribal authority over tribally owned land within the reservation. But then there was private landowners within the res that they didn't have authority over. And then they tried to argue that, well, only 2% of the land left within this res is actually owned by Indian people. So we're going to say the tribal government only applies to those private plots and not the res. And so we went to court and won. And finally they said, no, actually, all of that is Cherokee. all of that is Osage. That affects Tulsa, Oklahoma, you see.
Yeah.
Because right where Tulsa is, part of it's within Cherokee jurisdiction, part of it's within Osage jurisdiction. That's
Yeah,
how
I
the
thought that
Koch
was a big.
brothers, Koch, like Koch, but
Yeah.
pronounced Koch. See,
Yep.
Koch brothers got their start going up there in Oklahoma and stealing oil from the reservations. He's got a big port of Catoosa right there on the Missouri Arkansas navigation system. I'm sorry, the Arkansas River navigation system, so they can barge it. They
Right.
locks and dams that they built all the way up to his oil refineries outside
I
of
thought when I
Tulsa.
heard that last, I'm not sure when that was. Maybe during the summer sometime that I heard that about the that case being won and
Uh-huh.
the lands being turned back over. And I thought that was a big deal, right? I mean, that's a good
Well,
win.
it's not that the land was turned back over; it's that the jurisdiction of the tribal government was reasserted for all of that territory. So now they're saying that, well, it is officially Cherokee territory, but it's, a lot of it is still under private ownership.
Right.
And so, you know, I don't know how that would work. If you were going to try to repatriate the land, you'd have to deal with the Dawes Allotment Act and go back. Because I am a land surveyor, and in terms of property title, you'd have to go back to the source title instruments in order to extinguish title, and that would go back to the Dawes Allotment Act. But I mean,
wow.
what fascinates me about our story in terms of contact, and I say our story is First Nations and contact with, waves of colonization, whether it was the Vikings who came from the north, like Eric the Red, or the Spanish, or later the French and the Huguenots and the British. There are so many expeditions that went miserably wrong that we never
Yeah.
hear about.
Yeah.
And one of the most famous would be with Alvar Nunez Cabeza de Vaca, which in Spanish would mean cow's head. Cabeza de Vaca, right? Head of a cow.
Cabeza de vaca.
And he was with the Panfilo de Narvaez expedition that left out of Tampa, Florida, and they got caught in a hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico near the mouth of the Mississippi River, and they washed ashore. Just a few survivors. One was a black slave named Estevanico, and along with Cabeza de Vaca and two or three others, and they were taken prisoner by the local Huma tribe. Today that would be Houma or Houma, Louisiana, Houma. In fact, I believe they actually shipwrecked on Avery Island, which ironically is where they make Tabasco sauce.
Oh wow.
Avery Island, Louisiana. But that's where they were taken prisoner, and then eventually Cabeza de Vaca learned the trade of a shaman and managed to cure somebody, and they gained their freedom. And Estevanico, the black slave, actually argued for and saved the lives of the other white captives several times, intervening with the natives because they thought he was a magic man because his skin was black.
Oh wow.
Estevanico. And eventually, Estevanico and Cabeza de Vaca and the rest of them made their way across Louisiana and Arkansas and up into the Rocky Mountains and then down through Colorado and New Mexico and into Mexico and all the way to El Chapo town, Culiacan, in Sinaloa province.
That's wild.
And right there in the Sinaloa province in Culiacan at the Jesuit missionary and Catholic church, they walked back into civilization after not being seen or heard from for 6 years. And they began with the expedition and 3 ships, I don't know how many hundreds of people.
That's
just
fucking
like
crazy.
three men straggled back to Mexico, back to the Spain, got on a boat, made it back to Madrid, and you wrote down all these stories about the 7 cities of gold. And that spread this huge gold stampede to South America. And that's when the Pizarro brothers and Francisco de Orellana and all the rest of them go down to Ecuador and Peru and everything else, trying to go through the Amazon to find 7 cities of gold, that cabeza de vaca was talking about.
Uh-huh.
The guy that survived that bad expedition. So, but what's awesome through this history of contact with our First Nations is the language barrier. Unless there was a way to crack through the language barrier, colonists were either killed and eaten or just killed.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no documentation. There's no like, people just showed up, probably random thousands of expeditions, probably just never to be seen.
And they weren't the people that like would be missed, right? Like the
Yeah,
people that
some of-
came over
Some of them, yeah, they
were like
kinda
the low
throwaway.
lives. They were the people that were expelled.
Or people who had to redeem themselves and could.
You
if they
can't
came
help
back.
them. You can't help but root for them because they come on the shore. They've got the chains ready to go around your neck. They're ready to rape your children and your babies. I mean, you can't help but root for them and hope that every arrow sticks. You know what I'm saying? So here's what's amazing. You think about Montezuma and how the Aztecs, the Mexica people, were conquered by Spain, and Mexico was renamed La Nueva España, or New Spain.
Mhm. Right.
But then the natives and colonists of Nueva España, with El Grito of Benito, right? The Grito of Benito Juarez, they declared independence from the crown of Spain and went back to their old Aztec name of Mexico.
Right. That's
oh
wild.
my god.
That's wild how that works.
That's why it's called Mexico. Mexico is an Aztec word. Nueva España would be the Spanish. That's what it was called in Spain. That's New Spain. And
Right.
Mexico was like, no, we're Mexico. Eat a bag of dicks. And so,
Yeah, fucking eat a bag of dicks. We are Mexico.
but a lot of the things that we love and cherish and we think are perhaps like Spanish food, like tacos and burritos and enchiladas and empanadas and
Burrito.
burritos, that's Aztec food.
Yeah.
That's not Spanish food.
No, that's old school.
Aztec
Yeah.
food. That's Montezuma grub. Right? Because when you go to
That's
Spain,
why it's so righteous. That's why it's so comfort food. Because it's fucking straight up fucking, food for millennia.
So if you
before
think about it in that
over.
regard, everyone eating tacos, everyone eating burritos, everyone eating corn, right? Everyone eating refried beans or guacamole, okay?
Mhm.
That's Native American
Mhm.
cuisine. That's not
Absolutely.
Spanish. That's
Yeah.
not French. That's Native American. That's a particular tribe's food. And most of it that's popularized is Aztec food, right? I mean, the word we use for weed is the Aztec word, or I mean, a Spanicized form of the Aztec word. In Aztec, marihuana, right?
Yeah.
The grass that
Oh
makes
my
you
gosh.
drunk. Marihuana. And marihuana,
Oh my
when
God, the
when
grizzly.
Cortez heard that, he said marijuana,
Right.
right? And that's how marijuana became marijuana, right?
There's
It's from
the
Aztec.
callback to the language barrier.
So calling it
and that weird
marijuana.
bastardization of
That's a
Spanish and
Spanish-sized
indigenous.
form of the original Aztec. Because so I got ahead of myself. Prior to Cortez coming to shore, about 4 years prior, an expedition was sent, and they first landed on an island that they called Isla de Cozumel. A lot of people may be familiar with that. Then he went to shore at a place called Cancun.
Mhm.
Cancun,
Very popular
Mexico.
spot.
That's in the Yucatan, most southeasternmost extreme part of Mexico, which is really colonial frontier Mexico. It was the last part of Mexico that was added to Mexico, because Mexico's got 33 states, and that's the state of Quintana Roo, down there where he went ashore in Cancun, and that was the expedition of Jeronimo de Aguilar, or Geronimo de Aguilar, like Christina Aguilar. And everyone was taken captive. Most were killed. Geronimo managed to be taken as a slave of the local Mayan tribe near Chichen Itza, and he lived there for 4 years and talked about the ruins at Tulum and Chichen Itza. Luckily, he never had to play the ball game. The winner kills themselves. Anyways, yeah. Mayan stickball game. You never want to be the winner.
Oh my God.
That's the most punk rock stickball game ever. God damn.
You win the game, you go out in the middle of the field, you catch your head off. Hey, it's all for you, Quetzalcoatl. Anyways,
Praise me.
so he, after 4 years, Hernan Cortez comes to shore with 3 boats, and they rescue Geronimo de Aguilar, who's been a captive to the Maya for 4 years. So now, thanks to Geronimo, I don't want to say Geronimo because then people are going to get confused with another an Apache who fought with what's his name? Geronimo fought with Pancho Villa and the Mexicans, the Apaches and the Comanches, but that's a different guy. Anyways, Geronimo de Aguilar. We'll say Aguilar. Oh, yeah, that. I'm a genie in a bottle. So Aguilar speaks the Mayan and the Spanish, and then Cortez makes his way on down to the skinniest part of Mexico, which is called the Strait of Teotihuacan, right? And there's actually Tabasco. There's a Tabasco state there. And right on the coastline, Cortez buys a young bride. I guess that's another one of those happy marriages.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes me think of like John Belushi and the Blues Brothers, where he turns around at the fine dining table and he's like, "Oh, your daughter! How much for your daughter? Sell me your children!" Yeah. So, anyways, he buys this like 12
Imagine
or 13
if we learned history this way in school. It would
movie
be
references and
great
stuff.
history. You'd have
So
our
Cortez
attention.
buys this 13-year-old girl, and her name is Malin Zin, and she's she speaks Aztec. Nahuatl is what they call it in their own tongue, Nahuatl or Aztec. Malin Zin, and so he calls her El Malinche, with his Spanishized version. And El Malinche speaks Aztec and Mayan.
Oh, wow.
Aguilar speaks Mayan and Spanish. So now Cortez goes up, lands at Veracruz, and marches from Veracruz across through Puebla, boom, right into Tenochtitlan, where Moctezuma is waiting. Moctezuma, or as we call them, good old Montezumas, right?
Right.
And
he's the guy who gives you a bellyache. Yeah.
Turns out the Aztecs like to do, open heart surgery and paint their enemies blue and march them up. And
is that where Blue Lives Matter comes from? Is that
maybe.
where that comes from? The blue men?
Yeah.
I think it might be.
When you're painted up,
I
like
keep
a
trying to
Smurf,
find these blue people that they speak of, but I haven't found any.
when they paint you up like a Smurf and you're going up the stairs, it's the last climb.
There's something
immortality
going on.
And
you better make your
close
peace
by,
with
there's
yourself.
gonna be a cenote. There's going to be one of those cenotes, which is like a sinkhole. It's a wet sinkhole. A cenote. It's like looks like a sinkhole like you find around here in Kentucky and Virginia and Tennessee. Yep. But there's water in the bottom, and a bunch of severed heads, and soon to be yours, right? With beautiful blue paint. But anyway, so after doing that to all their neighbors in Tlaxcala and Toluca, doing that to the Michoacanos, doing that to the Oaxacanos, doing that to all the neighboring. I'm talking about the Aztecs.
Yeah.
So when Cortez shows up, and as he keeps getting closer to the Aztecs, they're all like, "Oh yeah, the Aztecs are the biggest bastards. They got all the gold. Oh, you're looking for gold? They got all that stuff. Man, screw them." They're like, "Well, hey, we got these dogs, and these horses, and these rifles. You should fight with us." And thanks to Aguilar and El Malinche, By the time Cortez shows up in Mexico City, I don't know what do you have, 300-400 Spaniards total, but like I don't know, 5,000-6,000 allied native warriors.
Right.
That then
warriors
under the organization of Cortez were then able to surround the lake and then block off, because there was only one way in and out of Mexico City on that long causeway. It was imagine like Venice.
Yeah.
It was all canals.
Yeah.
It was literally like, just imagine like Venice, Italy. That's what Mexico City was when Cortez arrived. There was just one causeway going out. Again, just like Venice. If you've ever been to Venice, there's like one little causeway that goes all the way out there with like railroad track and everything. And then the rest is all islands. So, long story short, Montezuma gets there. I mean, Cortez meets Montezuma. Montezuma's like, hey, try this brown drink. And he's like, brown drink? He's thinking, what is this shit? And he takes a drink. He's like, that's tasty. What's this? That's chocolato. Oh, I'll call it chocolate. Huh, it's a drink made from cacao bean.
Yeah.
Chocolate.
Cacao, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Chocolate. Cacao. Again, from cacao is Aztec. Right? Chocolato, Aztec. And he's like, try these red, soft apples. What are these? Oh, that's tomatle. Tomato.
Yeah.
That's tomatle. Tomato. Oh, he's like, oh, wow, this is great. Then here, drink this. He takes a drink. This is coffee. Oh, coffee. Oh, all right. That's nice.
Yeah.
Here, smoke this. What the fuck is that called? Marijuana. Marijuana. Oh,
Like coffee.
like, whoa, who's that? Oh, and then Montezuma's like, oh, this is my beautiful wife. Cortez then kills Montezuma, drinks all the chocolate, smokes all the weed, takes his wife, burns down all of Mexico City, takes all the gold, and goes back to Yay! I'm sorry. What a dick, man!
What a
dude!
dick.
I mean, dude, what a gracious host! And you're just gonna kill him and go screw his wife?
Most gracious
Or he's
host.
smoking
He
the last
kicked
of his
down with the
weed?
chocolate and the reefer on the same fucking visit.
And cacao. Like, how could you... Cacao, coffee? Yeah.
What the fuck?
What?
He had all the treasures.
Cortez is like, oh, this is
he was
mine
just
now. Screw you, dude.
He had gold fever. He was just like, give me the gold.
So
run your pockets. I don't give a fuck.
The term marijuana
Montezuma was
is
angry,
actually not...
and that's why. See, they did Montezuma so wrong. That's why they always talk about Montezuma's revenge.
Right.
Now you know why. Now you know why Montezuma is so fucking pissed. Wouldn't you be? God damn! I smoked this guy out. Let him drink the last of the freaking chocolate drink and the coffee and the tomatoes,
Bro, that's fucking harsh, bro.
Yeah. Oh my god, those are like the best things.
Right,
Like really, those are like my treasures, right?
Choice things. Like, I hooked you
So
up,
then,
bro.
imagine if you will, up near Nantucket. Let's see, Cape Cod. All right,
Yep. So in
Wampanoag.
Massachusetts. Yep.
Wampanoag country, the land that they call Massachusetts, or Massachusetts, as they say now. Massachusetts.
And if we said it that way, people would think we were drunk.
No, I've heard drunk people say it that way.
They, you know what I mean? They'd be like, "What are you,
Absolutely.
drunk?" You know?
I've been in VFWs and
I mean, I'm sure I've said it that way. You
I've
know?
heard it that way. I've heard like funny bastards saying it correctly. You know, like you're like, are you?
So there
drunk?
was this sub-tribe called the Patuxets.
I used to
And,
live
the
in Patuxet
Patuxets-
Valley. I used to live in Patuxet Valley, West Warwick, Rhode Island.
Well, of course, much later when the Mayflower would come ashore, they saw the Great Rock of Patuxet and they renamed it Plymouth Rock. And that's where the Plymouth colony was founded. But it was initially the settlement of the Patuxet tribe. And one of the Patuxets was abducted by an English sailor, abducted into slavery. And his name was Tisquantum. And Tisquantum was sold into slavery at Cadiz, Spain, where some monks bought him and he learned Spanish, and then he eventually, learning enough of the sailing trade, made his way to London, England, and learned English. And although there's no confirmed written historical record, the fact that Tisquantum was in London, England, at a house barely 2 blocks away from another house where Rebecca Rolfe was staying, aka Matoaka or Pocahontas, and they were there just 2 blocks away from each other in 1616 London, England. Um, because Indians were shown around like even up until like the 1900s with Buffalo Bill shows. I mean, there's all the rest. There's no way they didn't meet each other and probably have a conversation, but nothing was written down. But Tisquantum, of course, most people know as Squanto.
Yeah.
Squanto, Tisquantum. So anyhow, after learning Spanish and English, it took 3 trips back across to the Americas until finally he was somewhere close enough where he got let off near Newport, Rhode Island, and he made his way on foot in 1619 back to Patuxent, only to find that slave catching parties had returned to Patuxent and taken everyone else slave. And so, a lot of the coastal tribes like the Chincoteague, the Assateague, a lot of Mohicans, a lot of Narragansetts, a lot of Wampanoags were all initially just abducted into slavery. I mean, every ship that landed just took them all in, chained them up, and took them back to Europe for slaves. I mean, a lot of the history is not really talked about. But I mean,
Yeah.
Wasn't it like 500 people like at a time, and the boats were going out like nonstop? That's part of the history that I had found.
Well, I mean, they may have taken 500 at a time, but that would probably take 2 or 3 ships. But I mean, often you had entire
But I mean,
parties
like,
of 5 or 6
that,
ships.
Yeah, big parties, many
But
ships.
I mean, it would normally take more than one settlement, more than one raid to collect that many people.
Right.
Yeah,
But
that's just a lot of
anyhow-
people on one boat that they're that big, because
Well, it's several boats for
I know,
500
but
people.
but they were saying 500 per boat, and now you think about how big these boats are full of that many people,
insane to think
and that many boats. That's a lot of people.
Well, when it came to the size of the ship, it depends on, again, how much money was behind the venture and what kind of ship they could afford. Smaller and medium-sized ships were a lot easier to finance than some of these monster Spanish ships that could accommodate hundreds and hundreds of slaves below decks.
Yeah.
Granted, they
like
found ways
those
to
Columbus
pack
era
them in
ones,
even
like
tighter.
whatever.
But what's amazing is the dumb luck of that Mayflower party, the Pilgrims, led by William Bradford, when they came to shore, to be able to have the dumb luck to meet Squanto and immediately have Squanto as their interpreter, because everyone on the Mayflower speaks English. None of them spoke Powhatan. So I'm sorry, Wampanoag. And so Squanto, arguably at that time in history, had to be the only Native American alive in all of North America that could speak a Native American language and Spanish and English. And so the Mayflower were just unbelievably lucky to happen to have found this one guy on the shore when their boat pulled up. So he was able to talk to Metacomet. He was able to talk to King Philip. He was able to make all the arrangements so that they didn't get killed. And instead, they had a horn of abundance with, cranberry sauce and turkey dressing.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, because the
like
meal
one
was struggling,
guy
right?
being there and not being swept up by some other slavers or some other fucking incident that could have happened to Squanto at any point, and then he's just
the same thing happened with the other party, because these were 2 parties that were financed from England, right? You had the Bristol Land Company and the London Land
Bristol,
Company,
Connecticut. We have
right?
Bristol,
and
Connecticut.
the Bristol Land Company sponsored the Mayflower Party. out of Bristol's where they sailed. In the Mayflower sailed from Bristol, and then the other party, the Susan Constant and Godspeed. I'm talking about John Smith and the Virginia Land Company. That was the
Mm-hmm.
London party, right? And they sailed. They first made landfall in Bermuda and established a settlement at Bermuda, which is still there to this day. A lot of people don't realize John Smith and that Jamestown party, they were the first British to settle the island of Bermuda. And so the churches and everything they built in Bermuda is like 1604, 1605. And then boom, they get to Chesapeake Bay in 1607. Anyway, so they
Wow.
get to so from Bermuda, they luckily make it across that Bermuda Triangle, right, and into Chesapeake Bay, and into the land that the Powhatans call Genicomacca. And again, the same thing happens. Okay, we're familiar with Pocahontas. That was a name given to her. Her name was Matoaka, and her father was Wehun Sanaka, chief of Powhatans. But again, a lot of people just refer to her dad as Powhatan, but he was Wehun Sanaka, chief of the Powhatan Confederacy, which is a confederacy of many tribes. Anyways,
Right.
Details, but details matter. So,
No, it's fucking fascinating, man.
This is the part we're learning the parts that you don't find out. So this is awesome.
so Pocahontas's dad, his younger brother, this would be Pocahontas's uncle. His name is Opechancanough. And Opechancanough, he was actually abducted by the Spanish and taken into slavery. But he managed to escape, I think, after 2 or 3 years and made his way back to Virginia. As he was taken as a slave and down to Puerto Rico. And anyways, Opechancanough made his way back in like 1602 or 1603. So anyhow, all right. So now, imagine Opechancanough made it back after learning Spanish, and here comes the party leaving from Bermuda and on into the Chesapeake Bay, and they meet there, and the Paspahegh tribe was the one that was most affected because you have the Cocotan tribe and the Paspahegh tribe, other small tribes that were initially affected by the Jamestown party. But eventually it was Opechancanough who met with the James River Party to bargain to get Pocahontas back, because Pocahontas was initially abducted by the Jamestown Party. And they speak of how kind and generous and loving she was with all of her flesh. So I don't know if it was voluntary or not. But anyways, Uncle Opechancanough came to bargain for a release. Unfortunately, because these British sailors are using Spanish maps, and most of all the initial routes to the New World were by the Spanish, sailors speak Spanish. Most of them speak a little bit of Spanish. And so Opechancanough was able to establish a language. He was able to translate from Powhatan into Spanish. And the Jamestown Party was able to translate from English into Spanish. And that way they were able to make negotiations. And that's how it began. And then, of course, Pocahontas taught John Smith a number of words. John Smith was taken captive after Pocahontas was taken captive.
Right.
And then when Pocahontas returned, she begged for John Smith to be returned. So, some of the stories you told, you get in little bits and pieces. But anyways, John Smith made a dictionary of Powhatan words and terms. And that's pretty much all that survives of the Powhatan language today.
Wow.
And so words like moccasin and tomahawk, that's from their language. That's from Pocahontas' language. And had John Smith not learned those words, they'd just be dead.
Right.
We wouldn't have them.
Wild.
Like the words that Chief Guacanagari taught to Christopher Columbus when he first came to shore. Words like hammock. A hammock is a rope bed tied between two trees.
Mm-hmm.
That's a Caribbean thing. Hammock. Well, everybody knows what a hammock is now, right?
Sure.
Right. their term for cooking over hot stones is babacoa.
That's barbecue.
That's barbecue.
Wow.
I mean, now, these are the first words that Christopher Columbus learned of Native American language. Still with us today. Barbecue, hammock, tomahawk, moccasin. I mean, you just go. I mean, it's amazing. I'm talking about words that were exchanged and learned at the most initial contact. Like, when the British started to trade for things with the Cherokee Nation, everything was traded for buckskins. So this is going to cost $4. That's going to cost $10. That'll be $12. That's $8. And then they all had to learn. Is yes in Cherokee. Is no in Cherokee. $10, $5. To this day,
Oh my God.
still to this day, when you go to make trade in America, you say, how many bucks? That goes all the way back. All the way back to Sir Walter Raleigh and Roanoke. And
fascinating.
But
like a
that's
loop.
what I'm saying, Steve. It's there. It's in your face, but it's ubiquitous. It's like fish in water.
It's like it all looks innocuous, but you don't question it. Like, where does that word? Who's, which indigenous tribe did this thing come from that we say all the time that nobody thinks about, and then you're just drawing, connecting dots like that, man. I think is so important.
Now, if you look in the dictionary, and if you look in the dictionary for what is the definition of UH-HUH, right? And if you look that up in the dictionary, it'll say it came into colloquial use like in the 1840s or something. Right?
With zero explanation, just came into use.
Just came to use in the 1840s. Okay.
People just started saying.
Mind you, prior to 1836, the Cherokees were spread out across Virginia, West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama. And we were concentrated into camps. Right? Every Indian reservation is a concentration camp.
Yeah.
You don't find Navajos on the Cherokee Res.
Right.
You don't find Cherokees on the Navajo Res. You don't find Miamis on the Lakota Res. You don't find Seminoles on the Lakota Res. You don't find Lakotas on the Cherokee Res, although they're welcome and we have powwows and we visit each other's res. The point is, they're concentration camps. They are literally concentration camps of one ethnic race or people.
Yeah.
Jesus.
And the Department of Interior, Bureau of Indian Affairs, still classifies all reservations as POW camps, right? So, like take, for example, Russell Means, who is a great Lakota wisdom elder who just passed away, is in the sky world now. Russell Means, right? He's a Lakota elder from Pine Ridge Sioux Indian Reservation. Well, that's Prisoner of War Camp 44. Or Pine Ridge Sioux Indian Reservation, right? That's where you had the Ocheti Sakowin, where they had the Mini-Wachoni water protectors fighting against the Keystone XL pipeline, right? As we say in our language, Amaganita, right? Mini-Wachoni means water is life, right? Without water, there is no life.
Exactly.
That's really, really fucking heavy. And it's so fucking crazy, dude. God damn.
So Jilly wanted me to confirm that so buck is a Cherokee word, right?
No, we have a word for buck in Cherokee. Buck is short for buckskin.
Okay. Yeah.
Buckskin is the hide of a deer.
Yep.
Right? Mm-hmm. Buckskin is particularly processed deer hide, to where you'd already brained it and ashed it and then rubbed it with the rocks to where it's nice and smooth. It's just so
I've
smooth.
done that. I've done that. It's not.
It's so soft. It's so soft. So when you have the processed, soft, tanned deerskin hide, it's called buckskin or buck for short. And the very first trades that were happening from 1607 up until mid 1800s, you're still trading in buckskin, and it's a barter economy. So how this copper kettle I'll trade for 10 buckskins, costing you $10. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And you know, and
That's
there was
great.
also a common trade language called Mobilian or Mobile, and the Mobile or Mobilian trade language was like a common third language. I hate to
Like a
I hate to use
hybrid?
this term, but like if for language geeks, if you've ever heard of the language Esperanto,
Huh.
Esperanto. It's like a language that no one owns. It's not a language spoken by anybody, but it was proposed as an international language that everybody could speak. That's kind of
Oh,
like a
okay.
combination of other languages. Yeah, it was an epic fail. Anyways, I didn't know if the Esperanto would work, but Mobilian was not a particular language of any tribe in the southeast or the east coast region of North America. Mobilian was a trade language. And so it was a collection of like 200 words, 300 phrases, maybe, that all Indians from the Micmacs up in, Aroostook, around Maine, Allagash, right, up Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, run from there, and the Crees and the Hurons and the Ottawas, all the way
Yeah.
down to Seminoles in Florida, everything in between, and all the way out to the Arikari and the Kansas and the Kiowa and the, Arkansas and the Caddos. They all spoke this Mobilian trade language, which is basically like um, it's just a common language that everyone could trade in,
Right.
but it wasn't particularly anyone. It's like a Creole type thing, and I mean, it's not like that there were any really fluent speakers of Mobilian.
Is it like the combination, like the patois kind of thing, where it's sort of
Yes,
like a Creole
exactly.
patois thing?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Most of Mobilian trade language was uh, was the Aguilanche Gabonihiste, or La Langue de Francais, right? The first major trade language between fur trappers and
Yeah.
hide makers of buckskins and beaver pelts and everything was trading with the French hunters who are called coureurs de bois, which means
Hmm.
runners of the woods. And
Yeah.
and so like with Champlain and Pierre Marquette and Joliet and Jacques Cartier and the other French, they were the first to make trade. Because when the Spanish came to the southeast United States, um, virtually every single expedition ended with them being all practically killed to the last man. So they stopped coming here.
Right. They're like, no, can't hit that
And
shore.
plus, thankfully, Cabeza de Vaca, who straggled all the way back to Sinaloa, Mexico, and wrote his story about the 7 cities of gold in the Amazon. Fortunately, that threw everybody off our path, and they all stampeded to the Amazon. And they're like, screw this. We sent like 15 expeditions to the Carolinas and to the Gulf Coast of North America, and they've all been butchered or eaten. So we're going to try Panama and South America. See how that goes.
see, see how they are in the South.
And then so cue the French and cue the British, and so that Mobilian language, a lot of French, because the French were just different than the British in their approach in terms of trade and everything. They were just, most French just kind of like married in and adopted the culture and lived amongst the natives and traded pelts and whatnot. And so, since there was so much assimilation of the French into Native American culture, you see the assimilation of the French language into the main Mobilian trade language. And so, a lot of terms and a lot of things that you'll hear in cowboy movies and in other American historical documents, and you're like, ooh, I want to learn that language. And it's like, well, it's not really a language. It's a Mobilian pigged-in collection of trade terms for being able to make trade with people. And Mobilian trade would go along with all kinds of hand gestures and, kind of like just your constant Bernie Sanders with the fingers doing the Mobilian, half
That's
French,
great.
half Iroquois. But, it just amazes me the sheer, I guess it shouldn't amaze me. I mean, really, it shouldn't be amazing the fact that every expedition that was successful in North and Central America had the ability to overcome the language barrier. Right? Cortez had his translators. The James River Party had Pocahontas' uncle, Opachancano, younger brother to chief of the Powhatans, Lehun. Same thing with Squanto of the Patuxets. But what are the luck that the Mayflower, these buckle hats come ashore? They just happen to find the only guy standing on all of North America that speaks fluent fucking English.
Yeah, that's fucking strange.
God be praised. God be praised.
Yes.
And, sadly, there was a pedophile amongst the Plymouth Plantation, and they banished him to Block Island, out in
I've been there.
Long Island Sound. Right?
Yep.
Block Island. It gets banished. And, I think it was Block Island. And which Block Island wouldn't be that far from the mouth of Mystic River and
Yeah, no. Yeah, we're not far from
New
Mystic.
Haven area. But anyways, the point being, the Pequots had their main town on the River Mystic, right at the coastline, on the Sound. And then
we're about 20
they
minutes from Mystic.
Yeah,
Awesome.
that's our area. So,
Yeah.
So
we
all
understand.
these
We
fishing
recognize.
villages on Block Island. Well, the Plymouth Plantation people, they banished the pedophile from their colony and dump them in Block Island. Well, of course, pedos doing what pedos do. I'm not going to use the nouveau term of MAP because I find that just utterly disgusting.
No, not doing it either.
There's no normalization for that. That's a type of crime that's been a known crime for millennia. Anyways, so back to the pedo cut loose on Block Island. Of course, he finds little Indian boys and girls of the Pequot tribe and gets caught in the act. And well, the whites say that they tortured him. They say they did the fitting punishment, which was to not kill him, but to castrate him, removing his genitals. But they didn't kill him. They just removed his genitals and cauterized him and put him on a canoe and said, "You're not welcome on Block Island anymore either." Go somewhere else.
Hey.
Well, so the castrated, dickless pedophile now straggles back to the white people and they're like, "Oh my God, what happened to you? The Pequots did this to me." So Miles Standish is dispatched with his army to the Pequot village on River Mystic, and they burn it to the ground. And as because it's ringed with a log palisade, which is like logs that are sharpened at the top and tied together to make like a big wall, and so they light the walls of it on fire. And then as the women and the pregnant women and all try to come out, they slay them with swords. There's a number of engravings of this.
Yeah, I've seen a bunch. I've seen a couple of exhibits of this.
Victory over the Pequots.
Yeah,
because the warriors had just fought in a battle a few miles from the village. So virtually the only people in the actual palisade of the village was women that couldn't fight. So you're talking about old people, pregnant women, and babies, and that's what's massacred at the village. So when you see the flames and everything, you're literally talking about like toddlers, 2-3-year-olds, pregnant women, and elders over the age of 70 or 60.
Fucking heinous.
Because all the people of fighting health were fighting the fight down on the beach. The Palisade village was a little bit up the River Mystic, up on the bank. But anyhow, I'm getting lost in the weeds. And so John Winthrop, who was governor of the colony at that time, then declared the first ever Thanksgiving on October the 12th of 1637, I think, for that area, which would have included, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, because this is before the Rhode Island separate. Anyhow, that was the first Thanksgiving. So, a lot of times when people are like, don't you get mad about the fourth Thursday in November, and how that celebrates the massacre of the Pequots. Well, I mean, in fact, the first Thanksgiving did celebrate the massacre of the Pequots on October 12th. If we were celebrating Thanksgiving on October 12th, yeah, that would be outrageously unacceptable. The fact is, the Thanksgiving celebration with family has become something of its own, and it really doesn't have anything to do with the initial Thanksgivings that were celebrated for many decades, celebrating
Well,
the
it
victory
was a
of the
religious
Pequots.
thing too. It was Thanksgivings, and it wasn't actually about having food. It was with the Puritans when they came over, and it was actually supposed to be a time of fasting. So, like,
Well, in fact, he says in his declaration, I say Governor John Winthrop in the 1637, it's the first written official declaration where I declare here this day forth and every year thereafter a day of thanksgiving to God for clearing this land of the Indian people, and now it's ours to have as Christians. Thanks, God, for
Thanks,
killing all the
God.
Indians.
yeah, and then Abraham Lincoln made it actual holiday to
That's right.
celebrate that.
And he moved it into like April or something, right?
Yeah, it was a totally different day. It was like in the spring,
It was in the
like
spring.
around the time of Gettysburg or something like that. I think.
And then it got moved back to the fourth Thursday of November. But then I think FDR like moved it to the third Thursday in November.
I
So
know,
that there
like,
would be
it's just this
a
random,
longer
like,
No, they had to
I
do it to get a longer Christmas season. Think of the capitalism. Lucky.
that's what I think about it. I'm
Capitalism
like,
has
it's a
feelings.
capitalist holiday. That's all that Thanksgiving and Christmas. I mean, people that celebrate Christmas that aren't Christians, like, why? Why do you celebrate it? I don't
Capitalism has
anymore.
feelings.
I
Be
celebrate
more
the
sensitive.
seasons. The seasons, that's a gift. Like, I'll honor that. Like, I'm not gonna honor, like, it's a lie. It's all a lie. And Santa Claus, I don't even want to get into that. That's creepy as hell.
So, I think when Lincoln moved it to the spring was a really good thing. I think
It's
when
so
it got
important.
moved
You
back
can just
to
move it
November,
around.
the fact that November is so close to when the first Thanksgiving banquet was held, when the first Thanksgiving official declared celebrations were held, that you're able to make this American cultural myth where you've combined Pocahontas and the Powhatans bringing food to the starving colonists in Jamestown, and you've conflated that with a deer hunting party, having a feast with the Plymouth colonists, and then you've conflated it with the Pequot Thanksgiving for God opening this land for us so we can build a shining city on the hill, and so it's all
It's like,
this
did
crap that's
Spielberg
been
write
weaved
this shit?
together.
Who's this fucking writer for this garbage? It's the same people writing the shit in Hollywood for fucking 80 years. It's like the same mindset.
They just rewrite the history.
They've never gotten past like themselves. You know what I mean? Like the whole like narrative spin.
Now
they
here,
keep spinning and spinning and spinning
oh,
and
that's
spinning
better.
it.
Sorry, my lighting's been terrible the whole time. Looking like Pinhead from Hellraiser here. All right.
You are fine. I'm so glad to have you on
You
here.
have to go outside sometimes,
Oh,
man.
it's my
Come
pleasure.
I love this.
But
This is amazing.
I must say, I am really, I just filled with so much hope because, unlike, I try to steer away from the term like woke or great awakening because I see it in a deeper context of a great revealing. In so much as, ever since the debacle when I was doing the phone calls through my computer and knocking on doors for Bernie back in 2016, and then watching it happen over and over and over again from caucus to caucus, from primary to primary, just how stinking, filthy, corrupt it was. And then the backstabbing and paying people to fill the chairs at the convention in Philadelphia, and then Bernie immediately taking the microphone and just turning all his delegates over to Hillary. And
Yeah.
I mean, it was just such a it was so deflating for so many people that really got taken in hook, line, and sinker, and really got dosed up on the hopium, and enough is enough, and let's take on the billionaires. And then that led to the numbers show it led to a huge Dem exit. And since that time, as that happened in 2016, and since that time, whether it's been people screaming that there's a Russian under your pillow and there's a Russian about to crawl out from underneath your bed, and there's Russians digging potholes on the road that you drive to work, and
Also, China, Iran.
Russia's messing up your internet connection.
Hmm.
All
Leo's
these
like, I'm
boogeymen.
on the computer, guys.
Hi.
Leo, that's Yona.
It's
Say
been
hi, Yona.
revealing. Oh, see, Gisli. Oh, Shikujan.
I feel like,
So
yeah,
it's
but
been
I feel like
revealing.
it's a revealing, but it's also a uniting time, because as people are revealed for who they are, and before all this like kind of happened, I had this like amazing DMT trip. And like I literally went around the whole planet, and I was like, oh shit. I'm like, Steve, there's gonna be like a lot of death with this. Like there's a lot of death coming, and a lot of like, people are gonna be hurt and all this. And I didn't know whether it was from, the actual sickness, or as a result of how everything has happened. And now I'm like, oh man, I was telling you the truth. I knew it, I saw it, but I just didn't realize that it was, a larger scheme of it, at the very beginning, when everyone's like, wait, what the hell is happening?
It's just so insidious how dealing with this made up fucking giant thing, this giant thing that everybody's convinced is happening. There's like all this ulterior things happening to legitimize it in real time, right? And then it just
Well,
continues.
it hurts us. It hurts all of us because we speak from the heart quite often, and we listen with our hearts quite often, and so it still, even to this day, does sting and come across as a shock in some regard of this
Yeah.
malevolence, of this evil. I mean, I don't know about you, Stephen Lucky, but I mean, you always want to think the best of people.
I
Yeah.
do. Yeah, I
No,
always want
we
to.
try to approach everyone in that way. You do with an open heart, and you try to.
And everyone has demons, everyone has better angels, and we all want to think that the better end that everyone else's better angels are going to take the upper hand. Maybe it's naivete, but I call it. It's listening with your heart and speaking with your heart.
Yeah,
And
I think that's key. I think ultimately the idea that we are all connected, we're all part of a consciousness, and we're all just experiencing ourselves in these individual little bodies for this time is like the thing that makes us approach people with an open heart. Is like, you remember, it's a feeling when you meet someone that you fucking meet, and you're like, that fucking dude's right on. I know that fucking
Yeah, what I
that
say
character.
is,
You know what I mean? Like
it's not
from the past.
yeah, it's not like nice to
eternal thing.
It's not nice to meet you. It's nice to see you again.
Yes,
It's like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
sort of feeling.
namaste. You know what I mean? Like, I recognize you. I know we've been here before.
well, you
I
see,
think that
Namaste
idea.
and OCO are essentially the same kind of concept, because I say that OCO means hello because it's basically the initial greeting. But OCO,
A lot of
or,
people say namaste and they think of it as a greeting, but it has a much deeper,
Yeah,
much
it's like
deeper
it's
connotation.
it's like that
OC
same, universal
OC
thing.
or Oshi is like literally the common goodness, the positive spirit. And so when you say Oshikwo Shan or Oshikwo or OCO or Shio or Shiyu, what you're saying is, I feel the goodness in you. and then they say, I feel the goodness in you. And so I feel like namaste is essentially the same thing of, I recognize your positive aura.
Yes, your
Do you get
spirit,
what
the
I'm trying to
spirit
say?
in you.
Yeah, I
We're
think
on a
that's
level ground, like I see that spirit in you and me, and like neither one of us is better. We're just, two
I
people
think that's
here.
the thing that I was saying, like the universalness of it. Like those both of those greetings are the idea that all of us are connected and we're all the same consciousness experiencing ourselves on individual levels, right? So you can't ever fully articulate it the same way as the next person because everybody's subtly different. So one guy says namaste and the other guy says, oh, I see you. That's the
Mm-hmm.
same. It's the same. It's a universal thing. I think you just nod at each other and you don't have to say nothing. It's like
Yeah.
I
we know
believe
each
that
other.
people that have pets, pet lovers, regardless of the pet, whether it's iguanas or snakes or cats or
Sure.
dogs, you name it, um, pet lovers will instantly know what I'm talking about when I mentioned, like, well, the Lakota tribe would call it Yasin. We would call it Gadugi or Nigadasi Vanela. But basically, that I'm talking about the one life force, or that we are all related.
Yep.
And what that means is
Universal
when
energy. It's universal life energy.
basically that, what would be a way to talk about it in English? Like cats and dogs have souls. When you look into your dog's eyes, you can see that the dog is looking into your eyes.
Yeah.
And when you're able to sense the emotions, and when you see that the animals have like a sixth sense, just like people, like for example, let's say Steve's at home, Lucky runs out to the store, maybe 5 minutes before Lucky gets back, all the dogs go to the door and they're waiting for her. They already know
Yeah.
she's about to walk in the door. How can they know? She's still like 5 stoplights down, and there's loud noise outside and a train, but it's the
Yeah.
spirit. It's the
Man.
spirit connection. That's what I'm saying.
I'm very connected with Leo. He is like my shadow. Like
It gives me goosebumps.
He's going to sleep as
Animal
we're
lovers
sitting
know
here.
what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
The
dog.
spirit connection.
That's the thing. That's that connection. That's what I'm talking about. It's like it's verified to me through my pets. And it's like the thing that I think is real when I meet someone who I've never met before and we hit it off immediately and have all of these fucking synchronicities and things in common and whatever. You know what I mean? They're like, it's like someone that you knew before that's already passed on, but it's not that same person. It's somebody else, but it's all the same person. We're all the same.
Mm-hmm. I have the perfect example for you, Lucky. Imagine this, Lucky. Have you ever met a dog that has an owner, but you have spent some amount of time, whether it's 5 minutes or an hour or more than once, around a particular dog that has a particular owner that's remained the same, and then you finally meet the owner, and by the time you meet the owner, you already know what the owner's pretty much like, even though you never met the owner, simply because you've been around their pet.
Yeah.
And this works for dogs, cats. I mean, I'm throwing.
If you hung out with Leo without me, you would know.
Exactly.
If you hung out with him,
on, bro.
Him and I are like, yeah.
That is spot on. Leo's like a huge. He's like if your dog could be like Mick Jagger or something, he's like got that much swagger. He's just a fucking little shit, Everybody wants to see him. And we tell this tale, we've already said it before on the podcast, but we went to see Dead & Co. in Gillette Stadium in Foxborough a couple of years ago. And Leo is her service dog, so she has Leo with his little muffs on his ears, and we're walking through the crowd at Gillette Stadium through I don't know, 100,000 people or something in that fucking place, and we walk all the way straight up to.
I
the
was
fucking,
like, how
up to the
close do you
rail.
want to
Like,
get?
we were up to the stage at the rail, and everybody around us wants to take pictures.
I feel
of
like
Leo
I had paparazzi,
and and us walking by because it's such a sight. The band
'cause
sees us playing.
he sits on
and they
me
put
like
us on
this.
the jumbotron.
So
It's
he
like- it was
sits on
just
my
this whole
shoulder
thing.
while I dance. I
That
don't
was
even have to
all
hold
Leo,
him.
100% Leo.
Yep.
He just
Yeah.
commands
So
attention.
the guys
Wow.
on the stage in front of a whole stadium are looking at me with Leo. And then, Jeff is like, we're right under Jeff playing on the keys. And then, freaking John Mayer, he tells John Mayer in the middle of playing in front of this entire
the
stadium.
boys are all grinning and like, oh, look at the dog on the girl.
Yeah,
over
you
there.
know it, don't you?
fantastic.
And then Mayer points out the ball weird that we're there with Leo. I know. Look at him. He knows. You are so funny. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. And so I'm making eye contact with them, and they're freaking tearing it up, and we're up on the main screen and everything like that. I was like, Leo is magical. He is magic. He's amazing. Huh.
Leo, the show stealer.
He is. And he wears beads. He has jasper, and these are I have a mala necklace that I made for myself, and these are the same beads. They're an exotic wood, and he's got a little quartz crystal. And he always wears that. If he doesn't have it on, he will come and put his head through it. No, that's my necklace. I need to have my crystals. Yeah.
That's so cool. There's this story of a horned serpent called the Uktena in Cherokee mythology, and it's like a big it's got like a rattlesnake tail and a big snake body, and it's got wings, and it's got deer antlers, but it's got this big crystal right between its eyes called the Ulumsuti, and it will hypnotize you so that you can't run away, and then it gets you. But fortunately, don't worry, Uktena was defeated. He was taken up into the sky and picked apart by the two Thunderbirds. And thanks to the great Thunderbirds of the sky, they picked the wings off the Uktena, and he fell to the ground and crawled into a hole. And he's not been seen since. So we don't know if he's grown his wings back or not. But hopefully the Uktena variant doesn't come out, because I'm sure they've already got a vaccine for it.
I know, yeah. They're like, we got that. Oh, you gotta bring us back to Columbus being in prison.
Yes. Oh, I'm so sorry. So Columbus.
No, I love that you went around, and we can come right back to that. I'm super.
He took a number of voyages, and he had brothers and everything, Bartolomeo and others, right? Because Columbus was actually, he was born in Genova. He was Genovese, which they people say that Columbus was Italian, but that's not really accurate, because Italian and the country of Italy didn't exist in Columbus's day. He was part of the kingdom of Genoa. He was Genovese, and his name was Cristoforo Colomb, and then in Spanish it was Cristoforo Colon, Colon. But I think it was the Pope that renamed him Christopher Columbus. Anyhow,
they just changed the names and rename everybody, dates, names.
Yeah.
It don't matter.
Kings and queens.
But his original name was Colomb, Colomb. That's what it was in his native Genovese language, which would kind of be like Catalan that's spoken in Barcelona. So his brothers and himself, they've got a big what's it called? Enconiatus, big plantations where they're cultivating catawba, which is it's what you make like tapioca pudding out of, right?
Oh, okay.
Tapioca root.
Oh
Tapioca root. Catawba. And so they've got these big plantations. Well, there were other Spanish colonists that came there, but the Columbuses were just like taking everything and all the best land. And then some of the brothers started stealing plantations of other colonists and then killing them and stuff. So, anyways, uh, the Archbishop Fonseca travels from Spain to Hispaniola. And when he arrives in the harbor, he notes that other Spanish colonists and Indians have all been crucified on crosses and crosses planted on the banks all along the harbor, of just a macabre scene of rotting corpses everywhere on crucifixes. Um, and that's how he makes his landing in America, Archbishop Fonseca. There was another priest that was actually with Columbus during all these expeditions, named Bartolomeo de las Casas, who writes many of the stories that we hear of the atrocities carried out by Columbus and his men against the Indians. And particularly, there's one story where Columbus and his men tracked down the brother of Chief Wakanagari, Chief Hatue, Hatuey, Hatue. Hatue was younger brother of Chief Wakanagari, who I've mentioned before. That was the first chief to meet Columbus. And Hatue had made it over to Puerto Rico, close to where, like, the Arecibo, what was that, like a telescope that collapsed finally, unfortunately. The big Arecibo telescope in Puerto Rico. They've got caves and stuff in there, Mayaguez area. So Hatuey's over there, and Columbus's forces catch up with them over there. The island has been given over to Governor Ponce de Leon, who founded St. Augustine, looking for the Fountain of Youth. And when they corner Chief Hatue, the Spanish tell him that he should adopt Christianity and be baptized and be an example for all his people. And he then says, and they say that when you die, you'll go to heaven. And so Chief Hatue then asks back to them, well, if we become Christian and we die and we go to heaven, are all you people going to be there in heaven waiting for us? I said, yes, we'll all be in heaven with you. He said, oh, then I don't want to be baptized. Just kill us now so we can go somewhere else. but they managed to escape. They managed to escape.
That.
They got on their banana boat. They put up a fight. They managed to escape. They got in their banana boats and they sailed across the waters to Guantanamera, which is in the Spanish call Cuba, right?
Cuba. I was just going to say, is that Cuba?
In Native American, it's Guantanamera.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, Guantanamera.
And Puerto Rico, in the old language, the original Caribbean, is called Boriken, like Borikeen, Boriken. And so like a female Puerto Rican, you would call like a Boricua or a Boriqueña or Boriqueño. And but of course Ponce de Leon called it Puerto Rico, so they'll also go by, Puerto Riqueña, but which would be the Spanish. It's funny, Puerto Rico or Puertorriqueño, kind of close.
Pretty damn close.
Kind of close. So Hatue managed to ferry his people in banana boats from Puerto Rico over to Cuba, and they took refuge in Guantanamo Bay.
Yeah.
Later, the yellow journalists up in Connecticut would claim that Spain had sunk the Maine in Havana Harbor. So for the first time, the U.S. military seized foreign land and began to build an overseas base. This was in 1890, whatever, in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba.
Yeah.
To this very day, we still have a military base in Guantanamo Bay and a very famous prison now.
An unlimited lease. As
Yeah,
far as I
and until
understand.
we pull out of that lease, it's like they're stuck with us.
Yeah.
It's
Forever.
bullshit.
It's like we don't own it, but you don't own it either.
Yeah.
Guantanamo Bay is the first and oldest, longest overseas U.S. military base. It was the first.
That's
And it'll
wild.
probably be the last. But a lot of people
Yeah.
don't know that history.
That's really wild because to think that, if that happened in 1890, you know what I mean? That it took 100 years for us to expand out far enough to have a base somewhere besides in our country. It only took 100 years.
Yeah.
That's fucking crazy. Like, holy shit.
Oh,
Ambitious
I see
much?
what you mean. From 1790 to 1890. Bing!
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Hello, Cuba. And of course, a lot of people don't realize with the Spanish-American War, we not only took, all of Cuba and all of Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic, we also took over the Philippines. And the Philippines, the Philippine Islands, was United States territory from 1890 to 1945.
Yeah.
And
let's not forget Guam and Hawaii.
Right, and Guam and Saipan and Hawaii, but particularly with the Philippines, when the Spanish-American War, when the Americans went to the Philippines in the late 1890s, the atrocities that were carried out in the Philippines are just, it's pretty much the same thing that was done to like the Narragansetts and the Mohicans.
Right.
I mean, sadly, the U.S. empire has expanded itself through acts of constant subterfuge and deception and lying and just outright massacre. And what's always insulted me from Cherokee POV is when historians try to rationalize, justify that. Well, now, they would have been genocided by somebody else. I mean, that's just how, that's just how civilizations work. Every civilization is just, genocide. You want a democracy omelet? You're going to have to genocide a few peoples. You know what I'm saying? No, I don't know what you're saying. No, that's not how it works. No, sorry.
That's not how it works. That's
not how it works. You look at other kingdoms, other empires, there was conquering, there was, expansion and contraction of territory. But by and large, they had a rule of law. They had treaties. They signed treaties. They honored their word. The U.S. colonists, ever since July the 4th, 1776, and the government that was formed, have never kept their word on anything. You look at the United Nations today.
The only thing they've kept their word on is the genocides that they're doing.
I mean, even to this day, when they have a vote like to condemn the open air prison that is the Gaza Strip, and what Israel is doing in shelling the people in the Gaza Strip, and they'll go and have a vote at the United Nations.
Yeah.
And all the nations will be there, and they all have their representatives meet there at Rockefeller Plaza in New York City. And every single country will vote yes, that it's totally an open air prison, and they want to sanction Israel or condemn Israel for what they're doing. But, of course, Israel votes against it, and the United States votes against it, and they have veto power because they're on the Security Council. And maybe the Marshall Islands and one other place in Oceania will vote with Israel and the United States, and the rest of the other 200 nations on planet Earth vote against. Right. And so it's like, still to this day, they don't even want to say rule of law. Now you hear like Secretary of State Blinken call it like international rules-based order. Yeah. They can't even say law because they won't recognize law. They won't honor law. There are ICC warrants for George W. Bush. There are International Criminal Court warrants for other war criminals. The United States says, screw your international court. Israel says, screw your international court. Push comes to shove. If we can get a UN resolution to justify our imperialism, we'll get it. If we can't, screw you guys. We do what we want.
We do what we want. Yeah, it's like
And
America is on the Maury Povich show in 1996. You know what I mean? Like, I do what I want. He's like, America's like a teenage fucking, like troubled kid, that they portray on TV. Like, that's how fucking demented. You know what I mean? Like, that's how demented it is. That's how demented this country is. It like
I
policy
think
wise,
people have
as
a
far
very
as
warped.
international policy,
There's
and
such a
even most
warped
domestic.
perception, when the American public talk about politics and politicians, and to me, it's even beyond this false two-party, one-party war party. And what I'm speaking to is the fact that politicians and even, mainstream media news sources, they're just public relations for corporations.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Donald Trump's job was to sell weapons to Saudi Arabia. And you can go back and roll the bean footage when he's hosting Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and he's got the big posters, and he's talking about, look at all these weapons we're going to sell to Saudi Arabia so they can bomb the shit out of Yemen.
That's right.
So they can bomb the shit out of Hodeida and Sanaa.
It's
It's
like
just
roundabout,
it's
like,
machine.
oh,
That's
we'll
how
do it
works.
this way.
Everything goes through Israel. Everything, you know what I mean? It's like we'll send this over here, Saudi Arabia, everything else to fucking Israel.
And the sad thing is, Steve and Lucky, people regardless of political stripes, people get, because I want to keep this generalized, so as to not trigger people's partisan biases. Because the point is, regardless of political stripe, these politicians aren't working for Team Red or Team Blue. It's literally Team Pepsi, Team Coke, literally Coca-Cola Incorporated.
Neil Young told us
literally
in the fucking
Pepsi
80s, man, who the fuck was working. Yeah,
I say I am not red or blue or any of that right or left. I am pro human rights and all human rights.
Mm-hmm.
I am proactive on everybody's human right. I don't this whole political fucking shenanigans, it means nothing to me. It's a fucking sham for us to freaking focus on, and instead of like what we really need to do, if we're talking about red or blue, that doesn't matter. Like it's I am pro human rights, and that's where I'm gonna stand to protect that. That just eliminates that whole thing.
It's interesting the way that we look at human rights, because we look at human rights as such an inherent thing that we describe it as the Cherokee principle of human responsibilities. That as a human, you don't have a right or a dominion over every other living thing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Instead, out of
that fundamental is
lost for all of your common relations, because you're related to all peoples, all things, four-legged, two-legged, winged, furry, scaled, in respect to all of your relations, we have human responsibilities to respect the rights of other things. And quite often, human rights is seen through the fish-eyed lens of, I have my human rights that everyone else needs to respect. And we see it as, I have my human responsibilities where I need to respect the rights of the snail and the squirrel. If I want wood,
that makes perfect sense to me. Like,
if I want timber, if I want wood to build a house from that tree, I can't just think of that tree at the diameter of breast height, and I can calculate the number of board feet at a sawmill, how many feet of 2x4 and 6x9 this thing will cut out at the mill. But looking at it as a Cherokee, I might have a human right if I'm a landowner, and that's part of the land that's on my deed. So I own that tree. So that's my board feet. And I need to make some money. Babies need clothes. Baby needs shoes. It's Christmas time. But as a Cherokee, I look at it and I see the ginseng and the yellow root and the mayapple growing all underneath that tree. And the morels, mushrooms that the turkeys eat. And then I see growing in the branches of the oak tree, mistletoe hanging down off of it, growing off of it. I see birds nest up in the top of it. I see hollow parts in the trunk where squirrels are running in and out with acorns. I mean, This tree is not just board feet. It's an entire living community. Underneath
Mm-hmm.
that tree, it's a sponge that's like a mini aquifer that just holds 1,500 gallons of water almost year round underneath
Yeah,
its roots
just holds
body.
energy. Yep.
It just
Yep.
holds it. And all these different species of plants and animals living up and down the trunk, and the canopy that it casts, which allows the ginseng and the other
Mm-hmm.
valuable medicinal roots to grow underneath it. Once you cut all them trees,
You lost
there
all that whole
goes the
ecosystem.
morel, what we call dryland fish. The morel mushrooms is gone.
Oh yeah.
The ginseng is gone. The mayapple's gone. Yellowroot's gone. There's little baby chipmunks and squirrels coming out of the stump, and the parents are dead. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's just absolute destruction, and the smell of sawdust. And I mean,
I think
so
that's absolutely on point, man. Like
from a legal
it's
sense,
or
I have
and
a
it
human right to
yeah.
manage my property and manage my timber. But from a Cherokee perspective, I have a human responsibility to recognize the rights of everything else. That's the difference. You
Yeah.
see, it's not that we're saying that you don't have rights. No,
Of course.
No, I,
your
I
Of course.
agree.
human
I love
rights,
the way. I love that.
your human rights derive from the mutual respect when you
Yes.
respect the right of that chipmunk mother to raise her chipmunk babies, of those ginseng plants that have grown under this tree for 3,500 years.
Right.
You're respecting that nature has rights too. Dogs have rights too.
Oh,
Equal
yes.
Have
equal to
rights
your
too.
equal to your fucking, self-centered fucking fish-eyed vision of your own rights, everything else that exists has the same rights.
And that's why a
And-
true animal lover will tell you, I don't own my pets. I
Right.
didn't adopt my pets.
Yeah, I don't own them.
They love me enough to
Right.
adopt me, and
Yeah,
I belong
Leo
to
picked
them,
me.
and they'll let you know it.
That's fully
Leo picked
right.
me. He picked me as his owner. I was the first person to hold him.
Oh,
But, like,
picture. You got
I have a picture of him as a baby.
a baby picture.
Where do you find that?
These things aren't hard to explain, Lucky, when you have the animals. And you don't even have
That's
to
how
own an animal.
little.
You can
That's
still
how
make that
little Leo
connection.
was, and like
Wow.
my hand, you know,
Tiny.
he was in there. Yeah, he
He
was
looks
so
like
tiny.
a tiny little guinea pig.
Right?
He was like mouse, like. Yeah, he's so cute. Yeah, so I was the first person to like hold him after he was born, and I didn't like. I was with him like his entire life from like conception on, and like I didn't think I was going to be able to get him because he was already promised to somebody else, and then the someone else had ended up like adopting him for a short period of time, about what was it, like 6 weeks or something, that I wasn't his his mama, whatever. And then he ended up with me because I said, you know what, I really wanted him, but my friend wanted like all this money for him, and I was like, well, I don't have that and enough to go and get him checked out by the vet. Like I can't take that responsibility on without being, able to handle it. So I said, if he's supposed to be mine, he will come back to me. So I kind of like didn't want to, but I made a choice to, let that go. And so he was with
It was
somebody
fate.
for that 6 weeks. This teenage girl named him Leo, and then like my friend ended up, what she said was repoing the dog, like Leo, like he's not a thing
I'm
to
repoing
repo.
this chipmunk.
Yeah. And so like I mean I have pictures of him like when he was a baby, he would sleep like in my bra, like to stay warm, and like I was with him his entire life except for that like 6 weeks. And then after that she ended up saying, well, if you give me like a little bit, I think it was like $150 or something, then I would have enough that I could pay it off little by little to help her out, to cover her costs and everything.
That's
And
awesome.
so I did that. And so he was mine, and I kept the name Leo because I'm actually a Leo. So I was like, that's perfect. I love that name.
I'm a Leo too.
And are you?
Nice.
That's awesome. I'm July 31st.
July 28th.
Oh, we are so close.
Oh, that's
Wow.
birthday week
I'm
right
raised
there.
up in the city of Lyons, Kentucky, nonetheless. And that ain't no lie.
That ain't.
So when I would go visit Leo at the house over there when I didn't have him, I had like my ex's dog, who's a Jack Russell, and then his parents, which are Min Pin and Chihuahua, and then his little brother, and they were just super tiny, these little, and he was the smaller of the two. And he, all the dogs, when they see each other, they would go running around in a circle, all smelling each other's asses. But little Leo, the tiniest out of the whole bunch of them, would go between everybody's legs and come running to me. It was like, no, this is my human. This is who I need to go to. So, yeah, he picked me.
They're a special breed of dog that was bred for Native American royalty down there with that tribe, the Chihuahua tribe. And in fact,
wow.
I've been teaching you guys a little bit of Cherokee, and you may have seen some of our, I don't know if you can see this. Let me get this in here.
Oh,
Dictionary.
Yeah.
And then there's the symbol of the Cherokee Nation.
Oh, wow.
At the top here, Cherokee.
That's
English,
amazing.
and then, like here's, where it's got entries where you've got it all explained and written in Roman and then in Cherokee script and everything. But
cool.
That was Chief Sequoia, who ended up teaching the language to everyone else. Well, in particular, there was the old cursive, let's see if you can see this here. That's what old ancient Cherokee was like. It's cursive. It almost looks like Sanskrit or something.
Oh wow!
It does.
It's
cool.
very different. And so when the newspaper man, who was a British minister, Samuel Worcester, came to the new Chota capital when we were moved down to Georgia prior to the gold discovery and the Trail of Tears, they set about trying to make Cherokee easier to print in a newspaper, because he was a newspaper man. And so he worked with Chief Sequoia, that is Samuel Worcester, spelled like Worcester, but pronounced Worcester, like Worcester, Mass.
Like Worcester, Mass.
Worcester, Worcester,
just
Mass,
like Worcester, Mass, but it's like the WORCES. But anyway, Samuel Worcester, and so that's why we have this Worcester print, which is they look more like English symbols, right?
Yeah.
Instead of the old Cherokee, which is all cursive-y.
So it was like the dude who was the print master who made the plates and stuff to do that the first time.
Right. And he worked with Chief Sequoia to do that. Now, as Chief Sequoia, according to legend, his name was Sogwili or Sogwili Gagaga, which means red horse. That was his name. Some have said that his English name was George Guest or George Gist, but there's some dispute about that. But what is known is that, unfortunately, Sequoia is a nickname that was given to him. It comes from the Cherokee word Sequoia, which means pig.
Sequoia.
Okay, and
so we could be out there saying Sequoia, and we could be yelling at the cops, and they wouldn't know what we were talking about.
Right. Well, Sequoia or Sequoia means piggy or pig-like, and the reason why.
Wow.
Okay, there were, at that time, we're talking early 1800s, 1820s. At that time, there's basically like three groups. Imagine if you basically kind of think of like Amish Cherokee, Mennonite Cherokee, and then like wannabe Westerners Cherokee that just like reject traditional life. So like if you're talking an Amish community, you've got full blown Amish, Mennonite Amish, and then been on the Rumspringer, never came back.
Right.
And so,
Right.
uh, because what happened was we ended up developing an elite amongst the Cherokee tribe that ended up buying plantations and bought and owned African slaves. Again, we're in Georgia
Right.
in 1820. And so the white people are trying to civilize us savage Indians, and it's
Right.
more civilized to own the help. And so, ironically, when the Cherokee took up the practice of owning slaves, the Georgia government declared us a civilized tribe because, oh, you own slaves, that makes you civilized. But
What
granted,
fuck?
The
you're
fucking
talking
hypocrisy.
about a top 1% of Cherokee who were so rich that they had huge plantations and they owned Africans and they also had indentured Irish and Welsh servants working on terms of indenture, and they had poor Cherokees that sharecropped on the land as well. And
That's
so
amazing, dude. You don't hear any of this.
that's why when the Trail of Tears happens, the tribe broke into three pieces. You had the Kituah tribe, which is the traditionals, right? You had the Western Cherokee, which was, the plantation, the well-to-do, we'll call them the Cherokee Blue Bloods, right?
Right.
The Blue Bloods, and then you had
Money
the
class.
the Mennonites who were like, traditional, but we
Kind of
we do
orthodox, but not full
we're
on.
traditional, but it takes so long to nap flint to make arrowheads. We're just gonna hunt with rifles. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, right? We'll adopt some of the technology, but we're still gonna keep it traditional, right?
Right. We still like,
That's why I'm saying
indigenous
like
stuff, but
Mennonite,
rifles are groovy. I got it.
because I think Mennonites are like Amish that use electricity or
Yeah.
something.
Yes,
I think
yes,
so.
yes.
They drive cars.
So, and so in that context, because during the Trail of Tears, then you have basically a Cherokee Civil War between the Ridge Party and the others, John Ross, because the Ridge Parties, the Blue Bloods, the plantations, they go ahead and meet with the government and decide, we'll make a deal with the government on behalf of all the Cherokee and sell all the land. We'll just go to Oklahoma. Well, then they come back and they're like, listen, we just got back in D.C. We cut this deal. We got it all worked out for you. They're like, what? No, that's not the Cherokee Nation's rule. Every
Right.
town, every clan, every grandmother, there's not one leader who says.
Right.
That's one reason that there's a lot of
They're
controversy
fucking
about
socialists. God
different
damn it.
land sales because they just try to
Yeah.
find one chief or two chiefs and say, "Here, sign this." Okay,
Yes.
the whole people signed away everything.
Valid.
So John Ross and the others are like, "No, we're not leaving. We just want our case with the Supreme Court. John Marshall ruled in our favor. We don't have to go anywhere." And the Ridge Party are like, "No, you have to do it." So then, when the rest of the Cherokees find out that the Blue Bloods are trying to sell out all the land, well, all of the Ridges and all of them are hunted down and killed by the other Cherokee because that was not cool. And then you just get and then it's like a family feud type thing of killing going back and forth. And by that time, you've got in some cases 3-4 generations of plantation slavery. So you've got all kinds of Cherokee that are dark skinned, that are part Cherokee, part Zulu, part Cherokee, part Mandinka,
Wow.
part Cherokee, part different tribes of Africa, African slaves mixed with Cherokee. And they're known as Cherokee freedmen because when they went to Oklahoma, they were considered freedmen in 1830. But even though there was slavery in Missouri and Oklahoma and Texas, but because they were with the Cherokee tribe, well, they're Cherokee Indians, so they're not slaves. So they were considered Cherokee freedmen, even though they're black. And even to this day, that's a huge controversy because there's still some elites in the tribal governments that, there's been a lot of back and forth about allowing descendants of freedmen, slave Cherokee to be enrolled in the Cherokee tribe because they were part of the Cherokee tribe. And so, there's this divide and conquer that happened within the Cherokee tribe. That was a strategy of negotiation to get the Cherokee tribe to turn against each other. And And at that point, it was already not really cohesive because you had a ruling elite. They were owning slaves. The rest of the Cherokee were like, I don't really know about that. And then you have a large portion that are traditional that are like, that's not part of our culture. And
Right. That's not how we
uh,
roll.
we're
So that
not
must
going to
have
build a
worked really
three-story plantation
swimmingly
house.
for them.
We're going to live in an old rock shelter that we've always lived. So, that's why I say
That
Amish versus non-Amish Cherokee.
Yeah, that must have worked out well though. Just the divisiveness of having everything split like that. It would be easier to move people, right? Like, because you know
So
what I
in
mean.
this context, the tribe's being torn apart, and the one thing that binds it together is the written language, the spoken language. But only certain scholars in one of the clans maintain the written language. Now,
Ah,
Wikipedia will tell you that Sequoia was a white man named George Guess, and he was completely illiterate, and he invented Cherokee out of thin air and taught it to everybody. Well, if you're illiterate, how do
Yeah.
you invent a language and then teach everyone if you're illiterate?
oh, I have a
But
question. I have a question about
Wikipedia is
sequoia.
not a good resource, but yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question about sequoia.
Uh-huh.
That means fat like a pig, right? Basically, like El
Oh,
Gordo or
so in the midst of this Cherokee Civil War, the language is what binds. And as the scribes are dying, and Sequoia is literally the last of the living scribes, he decides he has to find a way to make Cherokee easier so that everyone can use the writing system. Because for most Cherokee, it was only a spoken language,
right.
and
Okay.
we had already seen what happened to the Lumbee and the Powhatans and the Mohicans and other tribes that were only spoken languages. And when the elders died, everything died with them.
Right.
And if no one knows how to read this cursive, then this cursive is going to be meaningless to no one.
Right.
So, working with Samuel Worcester, the newspaper guy, they come up with this script, the Worcester script, right? And I have a special keyboard layout so that I can push a special button and then I can type Cherokee letters in
That's
in my
fantastic.
YouTube.
That's amazing.
And I had to make this little guide so that I can go to, all right, if I want to
Oh,
make
I
this
see.
symbol, then I need
It's
like
your grid.
uppercase or lowercase or whatever.
Wow.
But it's this print form of Cherokee that was, you know, more easily understood and easy to teach.
Yeah.
And within 2 to 3 years, there was over 90% literacy in the entire Cherokee Nation prior to
Wow.
the Trail of Tears. And I think it's the written language that's the cohesive bond going to the Worcester print that allows people to then go back and read the older cursive things,
That's
and
amazing.
it's
That's just
kept everything
crazy.
alive. So what happened is Sequoia's working with this white guy to change the Cherokee language.
Right.
This doesn't fly well with traditionalists, according to tradition. According to tradition, so um, a party affiliated with the Ridges, the Blue Bloods, if I'm remembering correctly, um, they marched out to Sequoia's cabin and attacked him and his wife and destroyed everything they could find in his cabin, burning everything. They said that he was worshiping the devil, and because Cherokees were Christianized. First book written from English into Cherokee was the Holy Bible, and so they're like, you're practicing devil worship, and they burn all this stuff, and then they proceed to cut off the tips of his toes and the tips of his fingers. They cut off the tips of his ears, and then they cut off his nose. And at that point in time, friends of Sequoia arrived at his cabin and rescued him from the torture and nursed him back to health. But where the tip of his nose had been cut off, it made him look well, the those that tortured him and were saying that he was a devil worshiper, after he survived their assassination attempt, they then made fun of him and called him pig face or sequoia
I
because they
see.
cut off his nose.
I see. That's
Oh
where the
my
pig
And
god.
so
thing.
they called him sequoia or sequoia for pig face.
Okay.
But luckily, he survived the wounds. The language survived. The Cherokee Nation survived. Now we have a Cherokee word symposium. I don't know if it's once a year or twice a year, where the all the different Cherokee nations will come together, because you have the Eastern Band and the Western Band and the Kituah Band and there's other state bands. But anyways, come together whenever we need new words.
Wow.
Because there's constantly new words. Like we needed a word for astronaut, and then we needed a word for a server, then we needed a word for modem, and so you know the brightest amongst the different bands of Cherokee will come together and they'll be like, all right, we need to agree to a word or a phrase you know uh,
Right.
for a digital coin or a digital currency. And so then they'll be like, okay. And the real breakthrough for the Cherokee language in terms of computing is when we got the ISO codes. And that's when we got our own Wikipedia page and Cherokee script and all that stuff. That was back in 2003 or 2004. I think that was with Durban Feeling and the Western Cherokee out in Oklahoma.
Now,
Um,
when they're deciding on a new word for a piece of tech or whatever it may be, do they do it in the way that Cherokee words were, and phrases were assembled in days of yore? You know what I mean? Do they go about it in the
well, now
same
that's
way?
interesting because basically, when it comes to translating concepts or thoughts, which is all a sentence really is,
Sure.
right? You got a subject and a predicate. With English grammar, you got noun and pronoun and verb and adverb and prepositions and all that, articles and stuff. But with Cherokee is a very verb centric language. I'd say like over 2/3 of the language is just a verb with prefixes and suffixes. Think Latin in construction, and a lot of sentences in Cherokee is just the verb. It's just verb.
Wow.
So when it comes to translating thoughts or concepts between English and Cherokee, you really have to. You're just basically trying to describe the same thing,
Sure.
because we don't really have that thing. So like, let me see here. Like one of the words we have, take for example, car or automobile, right?
Yeah.
Um, well, like you could say Dagwalela, which literally means like wagon, right?
hmm
Dagwalela or Dagwalela.
That's like
And
literal.
that's technically like a ride, right? My Dagwalela would be like my ride, or
Sure.
wheels. That wheels. But
Yeah. You're with.
if you're wanting to be specific to a Cherokee and say no, I'm talking about a car. Okay.
Right.
Well, we call a car digadoo-lee, which means Google eyes, big googly eyes. Because what's a car look like at night, right? When you turn on the headlights on a
Right.
car,
It's big eyeballs.
it just looks like a head with big googly eyes going down the
That's
road. So
awesome.
digadoo-lee, big Google eyes.
That's fucking
so
great.
I
so
love that.
so
What if
one
they have a
reason
padiddle?
why
What if they have a padiddle?
Yeah. What
you
if there's
know
a padiddle? Is there a Cherokee word for a padiddle? That would be the one
I'm
googly eye,
sure that would be one eye. That would be
Yeah.
one eye.
Like
But
Cyclops.
like you know, there are a couple things like I think when people want to talk about like authentic Cherokee, like I'm authentic Cherokee. My grandma was a Cherokee princess. Well, that's a definite no, because we don't have a monarchy
It's
system.
not a
So
monarchy.
there weren't princes and princesses and kings and
I
queens.
always
There
thought
aren't
that.
Cherokee castles. So that's an Elizabeth warm type shit.
I
That,
remember in sixth grade reading about patriarchies and monarchies, and like, how can you be an Indian princess? I mean, like, was your
and then
dad like
another
the
thing,
king of India at the time? I don't
if you hear
understand.
somebody they're saying like my Cherokee name is um, glowing eagle thunder or golden bear or something like that, Again, it's probably not Cherokee, probably some Elizabeth Warren vibes again, because I mean Cherokee names are funny, like Big Meat
Like me.
or Greaseball or Swimmer or Dragger, Climber, Jumper. It's not really this glorious, Silver Hawk or something. It's
That's fucking great. There's like most of the names are literal. They're like very literal, like verb oriented, like you're saying.
and then you'll have your nickname. So, like, if you're really big and um, if you're just
Like
big
if you're like a
boned,
big bearded guy, big bearded bald guy
then
like
we'll
me,
call
what
you
would that
Oosty. Your name will be Oosty or Oosty God, which is tiny,
be?
right? That's tiny, the big guy, and then the really really tiny guy we'll call him Equa or Utana, which means large or humongous. It's just the Cherokee humor. It's just constant Cherokee humor, right?
That is great.
You're like, wow, I met Tiny and I thought he would be tiny, but Tiny's bigger than a fucking sumo wrestler. Oh my god.
Tiny was a euphemism.
And of course, Tiny plays the really, really tiny guitar, right?
That's right. He has a little tiny guitar, like Tiny Tim, right? So
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh my
All right, I have
gosh.
one more
So I got
question
to finish
about.
up the Columbus thing. I keep getting off track
No,
with
yeah, no.
Lucky,
I had one
and
more
I
thing that was
have to
tied
finish
in.
up.
Let me do the sequoia question. Now, there's a sequoia tree, right? And it's the redwood
Yes.
tree. It's a sequoia. Now, do you know the lineage on that word? Like, is that a similar thing? Because it's such a big fat tree.
When Sequoia survived his assassination attempt and Samuel Worcester and the tribe moved to Oklahoma, they rebuilt the newspaper office of the Cherokee Phoenix, and Sequoia became an international sensation. And the naturalist John Muir, who first identified that species of tree in California, named the sequoia tree in honor of Chief Sequoia.
In honor, okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Before Chief Sequoia, Chief Piggyface, there was no Sequoia. He is the Sequoia.
That's
Sequoia.
amazing. What if I'm really glad now that I asked you, because I was like, as soon as you said that, I was like, I wonder if he has anything to do with the tree.
Because there's
Maybe
also an SUV. Is it Toyota that makes this Sequoia?
That's true. Yeah,
There's a Toyota Sequoia?
yeah, the Toyota like pickup truck is a Sequoia, right? Like the full size one, I think.
Fortunately,
nice truck.
Sequoia's name hasn't been given to any particular mass casualty weapon of the U.S. military yet that I'm aware of.
Oh my god, I know, like all the names like
Wait,
Black Hawk and all this,
we do
and
have
like
Black Hawks and
they
Arapahoes
stole all
and
the
Apaches and Cherokees and others. But
Crazy.
fortunately, I don't think there's a Sequoia warhead yet. Thank God.
One of my favorite vehicles is a '91 Cherokee. I love that truck.
Nothing
And Barbara-
flat. I tell you, no form of Native American cultural appropriation flatters more than weapons of war, right?
That's
yeah,
right.
right.
Yeah.
Did you
it
see what
certainly
Barbara?
flattens them. Jeez.
Yeah.
Flattening something.
Did you
Flatten
see
the
what-
curve.
did you
Just
see-
another 2 weeks.
Barbara said, stranger or alien. Barbara means stranger or alien.
Whoa, that's awesome.
Well, that would come from the Barbars and the Barbary Coast. That's where Barbara would come from. The Barbars, that would be the shores of Tripoli. Like if you've ever heard the Caisson song of the U.S. Marines,
Yeah.
right? the first marine invasion was of Mexico. So they had to go march through the halls of
Montezuma.
Montezuma. Yes, so here we go, tying it back again. From the
Always
halls
comes
of
back.
Montezuma to the
my
shores of
Tripoli.
Tripoli to fight the barbars, the
That's amazing.
barbarians at
Yeah.
the Barbary coast, who
The
had taken a
barbars are
few
like the
US
Southeast
sailors
Asian,
as,
right?
We
they
need,
took
Asian.
sailors
we need to do
hostage,
this. This needs to
and
be
we
an
went to
ongoing,
Benghazi to
like,
rescue them under Thomas Jefferson. We went to Benghazi, Libya,
The
to
original
rescue
Benghazi.
U.S. sailors.
oh my God.
Wow.
We came, we saw, they died. That was 1804. Then we went back and we did it
That's
all
how
over
fucking
again.
old Hillary is. She's 204 now.
Oh my gosh.
We're tying it all together here.
Yeah,
Thanks,
man.
Oh my
Barbara.
gosh.
Connecting the dots.
You got to come on a regular basis and teach us this. Like,
Dude,
holy
really,
shit.
You just like laid so many,
I know. I'm going to rewatch this and,
Points.
like, you know, like make sure that
so
I'm
many,
like,
so many
oh.
tied together, ideas. That was really well.
Yona's
done.
red face
If you're
history
just fucking
hour.
riffing, you're fucking killing it. 'Cause
Yes,
that's
just
badass.
go with it. Yeah, and I'm sorry we interrupted you, but you were
Oh, yeah,
going
take
on
us
to
back to
you were
Columbus,
going on to
please.
Columbus.
Yeah, so I guess we'll call this Yona's red-faced history hour, right?
excellent.
I love. Oh my
Because
God, this
there's
is
a double
great.
entendre. Is it red-faced like I'm a white dude at putting on Chief Wahoo, or am I red-faced because I'm angry, or am I red-faced because of the tan? I think red-faced goes with red pretty much. But
I'm red faced from coughing.
We're gonna have to make a whole series of just Yonas. Like this is you got to keep coming on.
That's
this is
good shit.
amazing. Yeah.
That was
All right,
wicked
so without
fun with
further
Charlie,
ado, we
too,
return to
man.
Hispaniola with Archbishop Fonseca, and he manages to track down Christopher Columbus. He finds the brother. They summon him to Santo Domingo. He won't come there, so they got to go on the jungle, and they find him, and they put him in chains. They put him on the ship, they being Bishop Fonseca, right? Obispo Fonseca. Obispo means bishop in Spanish. So Obispo Fonseca, like San Luis Obispo, right?
Yeah.
St. Louis, Bishop St. Louis. Anyways, Obispo Fonseca takes them back to Madrid. He's the bishop of the court of Aragon and Castile, the marriage of Ferdinand and Isabella. Takes Columbus back, says for all these atrocities done to the natives in the name of God, which is heresy against God, and for all these things he did to other Spanish colonists, killing them and crucifying them and putting them on posts in the harbor, or sentencing him to the dungeon. So Columbus is thrown into the king's dungeon. And after a couple of months, the stories start going around about there's so much gold over there. There's so much money to be made over there. So Coronado, Cortez, the Pizarro brothers, Ponce de Leon, they all raise money for his bail.
Oh, wow. So he'll bring them. He'll show them.
Get him out of the clink. This time, I don't know, was it 50 ships he leads back across? And because, a lot of people think there's just one voyage of Columbus. Oh, no.
Oh, no.
First voyage, second voyage, third voyage, fourth voyage, fifth voyage. Anyways, that's how he got out of the dungeon. So we got to get this guy out, man. There's money to be had over there, yeah.
Yeah.
And who else is going to get us back over there? So, and then you have, Captain Cook and the others from England and others that then started coming across and exploring the coast. And Hudson, right? Henry Hudson and Frobisher and others.
The tea company.
But that's how the Columbus story plays out. I just find it fascinating that Latin America still sees what's happening today through the context of La Conquista. And they still see all of the Spanish, Spanish, I keep wanting to say, from my American public school upbringing and parochial school upbringing, Spanish explorers.
Yeah.
Because in America, we're taught that they're explorers, right? Well, Cortez was just exploring and stuff. Pizarro
Yeah.
just, killed Atahualpa and 80% of the Incan people, because they were like exploring and stuff and
Yeah, they were
discovering and all that.
conquistadors. Yeah.
They're conquistadors. And in Spanish, they're still conquistadors, butchers,
Yeah, man.
conquerors.
Yeah.
But in America, they're founders of civilization. And so the irony is,
bullshit like that.
in 1540, we have these dirty, filthy Spanish soldiers marching up through modern day Asheville, North Carolina.
Yeah.
Where Cornelius Vanderbilt built his luxuriant Biltmore estate, right? And Cornelius Vanderbilt, he was a robber baron. I'm sorry, we call them not robber baron. They're philanthropists. They got rebranded. I'm sorry. Yeah. They're philanthropists. Totally not robber barons.
Totally not.
Rockefeller, Vanderbilt, they're just loving giving rich people.
They're just rich people who like they give to charity.
Right. Selective charity. Might not be
So these Spanish soldiers are marching through where Cornelius Vanderbilt would go on to plant his Biltmore estate. And most of them are illiterate, can't read or write. They're just soldiers. They know how to swing a sword and fire an arquebus. They don't normally bathe or anything. Right. They get to the first Cherokee town and we bathe in water 5 times a day. We begin every day with morning going to water and bathing. And most Cherokee can, read and write, or at least are completely fluent in the language. We have written texts and written scribes, and most of the Spanish couldn't read or write and were filthy and didn't stink. We were savages. They were civilized.
Right, but they're the ones who stink to high heaven. We're in the.
We already have a written language. We're bathing 5 times a day, but we just got discovered, and we're going to get civilized, even though we already have a written language. And so people don't know this.
I'd rather live with the tribe.
That's just tremendous. That's like where it starts, right there. That juxtaposition, right there. Just you know what I mean. Imagine it went the other way. How advanced would humanity be now? Because when you were describing how the language worked and basically the idea of when she said she was for all human rights, the idea of rights for every living organism. You know what I mean? You have the responsibility to be kind to everything that exists.
Because you see, when you live by the law of nature, there are panthers, there are mountain lions. Yeah. You may not be the very top of the food chain, right? And as a human species, you're going to have to cooperate with other humans in order to not be panther meat.
Correct. That's the deal right there. That's where it lies.
It begins with cooperation, but then furthermore, in that context, until you recognize your responsibilities to truly respect all other life, they're not going to respect you. So you can want all the human rights you want while you're wrestling the bear and the bear is eating you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's so much bigger than just our interaction,
But we have kind of almost made a hermetic seal between the natural world and our daily lives now. Yeah. So that, people may see a bunch of dandelions growing up in the crack between the curb and the sidewalk and think, man, the city really needs to get out here with the Roundup and spray that, or somebody needs to go pull those weeds and everything. And if I'm hungry and I haven't had anything to eat, I'll probably go over and pull those dandelion greens, wash them off in the creek, and eat them, because that's basically free lettuce. But I mean, this is what I was talking about on the Grand Theft World town hall the other night, and the fact that it's strange to me because I always get into this whenever I play Trivial Pursuit and I'm trying to put the little pie pieces in my little thing, you know, and you got the different categories like TV and fads and history and stuff. And, you know, when I go out into the woods, you know, I know the names of everything, you know, that tree, they call it red oak. We call it gule juicy. A dendrologist, right? A botanist who studies trees. He would call it Quercus alba, right? Which is just Latin for red oak, right?
Right.
Which I got to say, whichever dude started giving the names to North American trees between all of the Quercus trees and the Fagus trees, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
My gaydar perks up a little bit every time I read tree names in Latin because.
And what's up with why is it everything in Latin like that? And first of all, if that's what I'm saying, like imagine the advancement had things changed and just like people would have just integrated.
I just try to keep humor with it because, you know, clearly
Right.
you got to be a tree hugger to sit down and try to think of Latin names for a tree. And when you see a big beech tree and you think, that big, gray, smooth beech, I'm going to call that Fagus grandifolia. Okay.
It's
All
just
right.
weird.
Well, how about
It's just
this
weird to
oak?
me that that
That
framework.
oak looks Quercus to me because
Quercus.
it's Quercus. It's hard wood. Okay. Okay. All right.
So Kate had a question. She wanted to know if you have written a book.
Yes, I have. I have written a couple of books that were published by the Kentucky Poets Society, where I've taken collections of my poems and. Well, I mean, I like everything that I write. I always have the intention of it being a song, so I like to think of everything that I write is, you know, already lyrics, gonna be lyrics, or potentially lyrics. But
yeah,
I mean.
You should do a thing with Steve.
Now I have a question.
There's a song that I wrote when I went to visit my family out in Colorado Springs. My oldest sister and her husband lived out there in one of the brownstones, and my mom had worked out there for a long time at the Broadmoor Hotel, which is right beside Pikes Peak. Broadmoor Hotel is probably one of the fanciest hotels in all of North America. I mean, it's like where, I don't know, like princes and queens and stuff have actually stayed at the Broadmoor.
Yeah.
And what's his name? Spencer Penrose or something. I don't know. My mom worked there. She could tell the whole history of that hotel. But anyways, I went out there, and it's the first time I got to see the Rocky Mountains. And, you know, I can remember we decided to cut across country because, you know, I went to see friends in Tahlequah, which is our western Cherokee res in Oklahoma. And then from there, just drove straight across through Kansas, through Wichita, and took the back road. I didn't take the interstate. I just drove straight across. It was like State Route 94 or something, coming into Pueblo County, Colorado. And I come up over this rise, and for the first time from 80 miles away, you can see Pikes Peak. Yeah. I was like, wow. And then we took this cog railway up Pikes Peak, and we got to see Garden of the Gods, which is where Al Gore chases the man bear pig and stuff. You know? Yeah. Totally serial. So I get there, and when I'm at the Broadmoor, I'm dying for a strawberry shake. So I leave the Broadmoor and I drive down to McDonald's to get me a strawberry shake. Fortunately, the shake machine was working at that day. We all know the thing with the McDonald's shake machine breakdowns. There's actually maps of that you can look at online to see how many McDonald's shake machines are broke down. So I go to the McDonald's to get my strawberry shake, and the guy, because this is the Broadmoor, I mean, this is like posh. I mean, there's limos and valet parking everywhere you go. Really, really posh McDonald's. And I get up to the window, the guy's wearing a suit and tie.
Yikes.
and he's well spoken. And I'm talking to him. He's like, "Yeah, man, I got a master's degree from the University of Colorado." And
What the
holy
fuck?
shit, this guy got a college degree and he's giving me McDonald's. Like, oh, this doesn't look good for the future, man. I mean,
Yeah.
they say go get a higher education and get a better job, but if the better job ain't there, you're still back at McDonald's working side by side with 3-time felon with the ankle bracelet.
Yeah. That's
He's
wild.
got the ankle bracelet, and you got the Masters of Science degree, buddy. And hey, ankle bracelet needs some more fries over there, buddy.
Yeah. We need a little nuclear fission on aisle 4. Thanks.
So after that experience,
Oh my
I
god.
immediately go down and I start jamming out because my mom got remarried after my dad passed away. I start jamming out with my new stepbrother and sit down on a keyboard and just sit down, hit a tape recorder. We start jamming out. Immediately, the first thing I start playing, the first 5 minutes of our jam out is Colorado cuisine. And so then when we got done, I like, because we recorded it on a cheap thing on an old actual cassette tape.
Yes.
And then I take the cassette tape and I sit down and I have to go back through and I'm like, okay, all right, these were the chords. And then I did this for the chorus and I went to this chord progression and okay, and then here are the lyrics that I sang. And so like it's weird being a musician. As you know, like sometimes you try to catch lightning in a jar.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there and it's like, the proverbial you got a pile of wadded up paper on the floor.
Yeah.
Trying to stuff and then sometimes you'll just sit down and you just feel it.
Yeah.
It's
Sometimes
just there.
very,
man.
very
You just start
rarely.
vibing.
It's rare that it happens, but sometimes they just come out fully formed. And you know what I mean? And they don't change that much even after you play them for years or whatever. A lot of times you'll write a song and it will go through some fucking mutations and stuff until you're like, yeah, that's where the bridge should be, or the arrangement's different, and you get it like locked in your brain and it never goes
It's a
away.
spiritual thing to me, Steve. It's like
It is.
the
It's
song finds you and
Yes.
implants in your soul.
Yes, brother.
And then it becomes a part of you. I mean, I don't have to explain this to you, Steve. You totally know what I'm
legit.
saying.
That's as legit as it gets, man.
He
For
was
real.
telling. We were talking this exact conversation about this just the other day.
It's just that's the
How
thing.
the
Well, I
how
mean,
like
here's
it's the
something I just
music
wrote,
that plays.
yesterday, and I mean, sometimes I'll like do these things on my Twitter page where I call it Poet Tweets, where I'll
Nice.
just try to fit something. Now that's something I actually started. I think I'm up to like Poet Tweet 20, where I just like try to fit something in there. And
Right,
what I
just
love
using how many
about
characters they give you.
the thing that I love about writing, I'm going to say writing lyrics, because I think of it as a songwriter, because you're able to distill so much down to just a few words. I mean, literally, to me, music is basically a meme with a melody and a harmony.
Yeah.
Music is basically a meme put to a chord progression with a harmony and a melody, and a really, really good song has the same power of a meme where it will cut right through. Take, for example, you had the lady at the NASCAR race where Brandon Brown won the race. The whole crowd screaming, "Fuck Joe Biden." She's on the microphone. The camera's on her. She stares into the American public and says, "Well, everyone's cheering for you. Let's go, Brandon." As if everyone watching that newscast can't hear with their own ears
Right.
or see with their own eyes. And so this meme took off of "Let's go, Brandon." And I see it more of a critique of the media lying to our face, even more so than a critique of Joe Biden. And so without further ado, maybe I'll spit some lines here to you, just to give you some idea. Because
and Charlie, yes, man, for sure, that is the only way to play.
People know this with music. You can listen to a song maybe sing along to it. You've not seen the lyrics yet, and you start singing along, and then you figure out, oh shit, I've been singing the wrong words. So then you go
That time,
and
you know,
you
the
look up
hook
the
is
lyrics,
good. Yes.
and then you read the lyrics, and you're like, what? Oh, there's something to this. And then you hear the song again, and then all of a sudden it's like peeling back the layers of an onion, and you start saying, whoa, there's more to this song.
Yeah.
What's going on here? Right?
Those are the best songs, the ones that are ambiguous, you know. Robert Hunter from the Dead, you know, did that thing like a Jack Straw from Wichita. They're little vignettes. They're like little movie scenes for verses. You know what I mean? Like, I just jumped the watchman right outside the fence, took his rings, $4 and change. Ain't that heaven sent?
I'll be right back.
Like, each little thing is just a little line that paints a fucking really succinct thing that could mean anything to anyone. And I think,
well, I tell you, I think
some of the best writing.
When I heard your balladeer troubadour style of singing, just really rich, full singing tone that I don't find often paired with such a mastery of guitar. And I thought, man, you know, and particularly with where the politics are and with the situation we're in today, when I think of all the songs that I've worked on or been a part of, when I first heard you singing, I immediately thought of that song Colorado Cuisine, just because. Well, I mean, it goes like, I got my GED, now I work my job at the Mickey D's, oh yes. And I got my college degree. Now the loan collector won't stop calling me all day. And it just keeps going on like that.
That's
you know, because
cool.
it was an improv. It was an improv song. But really, the whole song is telling the story of how, even at that point in time, some 15 years ago when I wrote that, even at that time, we were already in the best of times and the worst of times. It was already a tale of two Americas, where you got your hedge funders and they live in one part of Yonkers and White Plains, and then you go to the other part of Yonkers and White Plains, and hopefully you make it back out alive.
Right. Yeah. No, that's
The
fully.
Bronx Zoo, you know.
It seems to me it started to occur to me probably around 1998 that's where we were like, oh fuck.
Colorado Cuisine was around 2003, or I don't know. I'll send you the link in YouTube, but I mean, I don't believe in intellectual property. It's not my song. Take it, make it yours.
Well,
but
I
mean, I just thought of
I'll definitely try to sing it. Hell, you know.
I just thought of the lyrics. The lyrics really, really speak to the youth of today, because I was just shocked that what's this kid with a master's degree and a suit and tie doing?
Yeah.
Give me a fucking McDonald's strawberry shake next to a massive 5-star hotel where, you know, the Queen of Windsor Palace was at last week, you know?
Jesus Christ. Yeah.
It's like we're already a third world country, you know, when master's degrees are working in the food service industry. Not because they can't get a job somewhere else, because that job ain't there.
Right. That's just crazy that
they've got the technical expertise.
It proves that Banana Republic is existing, like right there, that it proves.
Yeah.
We live in a Banana Republic.
You know,
here it is.
You learned how to write code. You've got your, you know, computer science degree, but H-1B1 visa got that job because they're cheaper.
Yeah, that's it. Outsource everything. Everything, outsource. Everything.
We even outsource our bioweapon production.
Especially nowadays. I mean, no. The vaccines are safe and effective.
Do you see what Choosy said about the horned owls? So they're dangerous, and
they're dangerous.
They're capable of killing a person if you encounter one like during the daytime.
Well, you know, any kind of
that's what this is from.
Like that. Oh, look at
that's
that.
That's what this is from. That's an owl. Owl feather right there.
Oh, I should show Yona my crow feathers.
That's wild.
Oh,
Charlie said his brother used to talk dirty to owls, and it was a hoot.
And of course, you know what kind of feather this is.
Wow.
Boom!
Yep. I was gonna say that's
We
turkey.
have lots. We have lots of those around here.
Yeah, I have a lot. I have quite a few turkey feathers.
There are 3 feathers that are considered sacred or truth feathers, and that would be the eagle feather, the owl feather,
But
and
I
the
can't
turkey
own.
feather.
I can't
turkey,
own
yeah.
an eagle feather. I'm not allowed.
And so I've got my owl feathers and I got my turkey feather.
Nice.
I have a set of crow
But,
wings. I found a crow, a dead crow.
It's like holding your hand to the Bible, basically.
Yeah.
I found a dead crow on the way back from a festival, and it was like perfectly like brand new dead, like nothing wrong with this bird. I have no idea
Brand new dead.
what
I
happened.
like that.
Well,
Now,
I mean,
see, crow
so I
feathers are
took the
valuable
bird.
for a warrior. We used to have peace towns and war towns. Peace towns are ugu town, like that would be ugu. That's an owl town because the owl is the bird of peace, right?
Yeah.
And then you have your war towns, which are Kelowna Gaduha. Kelowna is crow, right? Crow towns, because crow is the bird of war. Crow feathers, you know, that when you put on the crow feathers, fixing to kick some ass, my friend.
Right on.
Yeah, I have. So I collected this crow, and I processed its wings. So I have 2 full spans of wings.
Wow.
I do have a crow head in my freezer and crow feet that I have not taken out and processed yet. But I want to make the feet have like crystal, you know, inside, and probably some, you know, artificial sinew. I don't really use the actual, you know, sinew, but yeah, I want to do something like that. And
it sounds to me like the Great Spirit recognized your fighter spirit and gifted to you the sacred wings of the warrior bird, the crow, right? Because I mean,
this lady is a fighter, bro.
You know, whenever I go to hunt or gather in the woods, and I come upon this feather and I come upon that plant, it was placed there for me by Great Spirit, so that I would find it, so that it would teach me something. And nature will talk to you.
Oh yeah.
Nature will let you know what's going on. Listen to nature. Nature's talking to you, and nature will recognize. And so nature recognized Lucky, Adasana, Ugadala Kelowna. Here's some crow feathers.
That's friggin' awesome.
Yeah,
Is it
really feel like that?
Let me go grab them. Huh?
Right? Is it just coincidence, or is it part of the great mystery?
No, it was definitely not a coincidence. It was it was like a rest area. I suddenly needed to like pull off there, and then I met this beautiful couple that was there. So yeah, I think it was definitely meant to be. But yeah, I'm gonna go grab them real quick. I want to show you them.
Awesome.
Yeah, I don't think I know another lady that's as strong as her. Dude has been through so much shit and just owns it. She's real as they come, and that's
crow feathers are the sign of a true fighter. A true fighter, fighting for what's right.
Yep. I'm really glad we could do this tonight, man. This is cool as hell. I'm really enjoying talking to you.
Well, I guess I'll share some lyrics here with you. So I gotta get Mama and Baby up to bed and stairs here. So let's see here. This is called the Poetic Anesthetic. Ooh, here's the crow feathers.
Yes, they're beautiful. They're big set too.
Yeah, they look awesome.
Wow, that's the full set.
Yeah, it was such a gift. And
well, to tie up the first version of the Red Face historical podcast here. We're going to
Yeah.
tie it up with this little thing I scribbled down yesterday called the poetic anesthetic.
Ooh.
The rhetoric, let's see here. That's bad when you can't read your own handwriting. Okay. The rhetoric aesthetic is poetic anesthetic. With the fungus among us, warp speed was humongous. Narrative constant, no vaccine. Declarative command, get the vaccine. Redefined words, no unapproved thought. Redesigned suburbs where the quarantined are brought. Language of allure for mass hypnosis. Banquet of manure with mask psychosis. The rhetoric aesthetic is poetic anesthetic.
That's fucking dope, man.
Oh my God. That was
Nice.
beautiful.
That wants to be a
Oh.
song for sure, man. That meter that you just read it, that was perfect. It's just I could hear it.
See, that's lyrics. I mean, it's talking about everything that's happening today.
Yeah.
The
No, that
language
was
of
on
the
point,
language
man.
of allure, the banquet of manure, the masks, the fear hypnosis, the mask hypnosis.
That had like a real fucking kind of like rage feel to it, too. Like,
Yeah.
sort of fucking, something driving
I love these swings.
and a nice sibilant, loud, pissed off vocal,
Really, that's my catharsis. I mean, because it's weird, oftentimes when I sit down and I try to practice cover songs or I'll practice, what's the Kid Rock song? Only God Knows Why, and
Yep.
because I trumpet, keyboard, and vocals, but the last 15, 20 years, I've just mainly just been the keyboardist, piano guy, maybe backup vocals every now, but with keyboard, it's been mainly keyboard stuff, and it's very frustrating. My fingers will get twisted, and music. You use music to be your stress release, and oftentimes music can actually stress you out.
Yeah, it can.
What's weird for me is my catharsis has always been writing. It's the writing process when I write lyrics, and that actually mellows me out to write it down, and it's kind of like getting it off your chest,
Right.
getting it out.
No, definitely. I think sometimes the most times I write is when I'm pissed off about something or something moves me in a big way, and I feel like I have to articulate it somehow. I think that works. That's
And
that's
it
what
helps
it
me because then I'll take a scrap of paper or an envelope I've written on or something, and then I'll sit down and when I mess up the Ozzy Osbourne for like the third time in a row, I'll quit playing the Randy Rhodes, and
Right.
I'll go back to this thing that I wrote, and I'll just start jamming something, just start making up something. Improv. I mean, improv is to me just the magic of music. Whenever you can get to the point where you're improv and vibing, because
Yeah.
I mean that's to me the joy of going to see an actual live band that's going to do a live show and not just Milli Vanilli it on stage, and
Yeah.
you get the big 10-minute long. It's like you go to a Fish concert, so the Trey Anastasio does the 15-minute guitar solo you've never heard on a record before.
Right.
Right?
Exactly. And that's where the depth lies in an ensemble situation anyway. If you have 4 guys or 5 guys or 7 guys or whatever the fuck, the way that they play together and the depth that they're willing to travel together or outside of or whatever in that moment, as you're doing it, being present in the moment and letting the music play the band, fucking, that's how it works. That's like, it's like that same cosmic connectiveness that we all have, and we're just like, it's just ringing through us at certain frequencies, and it comes out when you let it.
The shame to me is, I've been in a lot of bands. We put money together, had great recordings made, and to this day, I mean, most of the recordings that I have myself are the recordings that I made myself because, well, if you've ever recorded in the studio, you know how that crap goes. But I mean,
yeah.
And so, like, my favorite songs that I still have, all I really have is either the lyrics or the first time I ever recorded it. And so, like, I've got like my Julian Assange song and Caveman song and all the other songs where a lot of them are improv. And I've got the original 2002 or the original 2004 recording. And maybe
Yeah.
I've got some YouTube video of a live performance, but God, I wish I could get my hands on those studio recordings,
Right.
But I never really was worried about that. I didn't really care about a studio recording because I was never trying to duplicate a studio recording. It was just
Right.
about the
Capturing
feeling
it.
of the music, the vibe. And, granted, the lyrics would be the same. Chord progression still pretty much the same, but solo's kind of different every time. So how do I
Sure.
feel?
Right.
And not all music lovers and listeners, I think, are as flexible with their favorite artists when it comes to, listen, man, I paid good money for these tickets. I want to hear the freaking song and quit messing it up, man.
Right. Well, that's like, you got to decide who you're going to play for. Are you playing for yourself or are you playing for them? That's it. To me, it's a no-brainer. It's like, I'm playing for myself, and if it comes out good and I'm happy with it, that's the pinnacle. That's the fucking goal. If I can capture it when it's happening to have it later, that's fucking beautiful.
So,
but I like to approach it that way, where it's just I'm just playing, man. I'm gonna play whether somebody wants to hear it or not hear it. You know what I mean? If I'm playing in a big giant room for 1,000 people with a bunch of other dudes or whatever the situation is, I'm going to try to do it as well as I can to please myself. And then if everybody, generally speaking, if I'm pleased with it myself, usually most people are pleased with it too. So it works out okay.
Well, think
because
about
it's a
playing for
vibe, and it's a vibe that's shared with you and the audience. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Think about it as like, the universe. Like you're playing for like just, instead of just you're putting, because you're not just playing for you're playing to put that out there into the universe.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just saying, like, the way that I like go into any given situation, whether I'm playing in front of a whole bunch of people or I'm sitting right here, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing because I've made it the same thing. In my mind, I'm playing to try to get to a certain high, and I know when I get there, and that's where I want to fucking stay in that fucking sweet spot.
Because I think you're connected to the universe.
Well, yeah, no, it is absolutely what
that
you're saying.
universal
It's like,
energy.
It's the flow. Once you get in that flow, and you don't have.
It's a vibe, and what is a vibe short for? A vibe is an abbreviation for a vibration.
Yes.
Right. And ultimately,
Absolutely.
resonance, harmony, melody, music itself is just a collection of vibrations and resonances.
I believe that everything. I believe this is my twisted theory on the everything, is that everything is wave based, right? Everything is wave based. Every molecule in the universe is based on the same kind of wave, and it is a vibration. It is a fucking wave. So there you go. That's what it is.
And it's funny because
I had that on a DMT trip one time, and I was like, yeah, it's all waves. Oh yeah, I was at a Grateful Dead show one time too, and I could see the wave shapes, the forms coming out of the speakers. Like,
I thought everyone saw music. I thought everyone saw it that way.
I've only had the synesthesia like that like a couple of times in my whole life.
I see it like that all the time.
But it was like it validated my thought of where everything is wave based, like all the particles of everything.
It's like that guy that made the YouTube video with the metallic little dust on the table.
Yes.
And then he starts hitting the table with certain resonances, and they
and
all rearrange and make different
patterns
and geometric shapes. You know what I'm talking about.
I do. Resonant frequencies.
Yeah. And they have like the mushrooms, like that's
a big thing with Cherokee
they synthesize music.
Resonances, yeah.
We the famous flutes that the Cherokee Nation is known for is the Cherokee drone flutes. We have drone flutes. I don't know if you're familiar with what a drone flute is.
That means it has a note that rings the whole time, right?
Right.
Essentially.
So you have two flutes that are carved to where they join only at the mouthpiece, and then the drone flute that's running sidecar is going to be playing a constant fourth or a constant fifth or maybe a constant flatted third, and there are different drone flutes, and so that when you have all the drone flute,
Wow.
when you have all the drone flautists together playing, it's real.
So they're making like
It's
polychord fucking shit. Like
yeah,
wow, that
because
must
of the
sound intense.
strong resonance between those fourths and fifths and thirds.
Yeah, I watched a group of didgeridoo guys. They all had beards longer than mine. They were all like looked like they were like 50 years old, thin as a rail, like they were like in some sort of monastery or something, right? They're super orthodox dudes, and they sat there with these long didgeridoos that were like flared out at the bottom with like a horn kind of, and the chords that they were doing, playing in harmony to each other, and the dissonance when they wanted it was just like, oh my fucking word, blew my head off. Like I was stuck in front of them for a
I
good
saw a
hour.
video one time where there were some of my Aboriginal brothers down in Australia, and they were playing
Hmm.
didgeridoo for some elephants. And I mean, the elephants were really digging this music, man. They were dancing
Yeah,
around and doing all kinds of stuff. Because I mean, when he started playing, they were just chilling out. They all got on their feet, started dancing. They were digging the music, man.
that's right on, dude. Right on. I would think an elephant would love. He's got a great horn built in. He's got a trumpet. Like that's how he talks. In those tones.
Well,
So
but
like,
before I go tonight, I got to bring my kids up and put them to bed. But on that note, I definitely want to say a special prayer and send strength, love, and courage out to all my cherished Aboriginal brothers and sisters down in Australia, in the Northern Territories, and New Zealand, and the Solomon Islands. Their elders are being attacked and abducted and forcibly vexed. Um, there were a couple that managed to escape from one of the quarantine camps, and now they're being hunted down. I don't know how much news you've heard out of Australia, but on behalf of my fellow Cherokee and all of our other tribes in North America, I know the feelings are mutual, and we have nothing but love, courage, and support for all of our Aboriginal friends down under.
And
Um,
Oz is here, and he's from Australia. He just came in. Oz whistles.
yeah, man, right on.
and
That's
so
good.
I just had to say that, and speak from my heart and send out this love and strength and courage to all of our brothers here that we if anything, this great revealing is allowing more and more people that speak from the heart to join in one heart, one beating heart of love, and this is part of all the prophecies. I'll tie this up with this. Whether it's the Hopi or the Lakota, the Blackfoot, the Cree, the Seminole, the Yupiks up in Alaska, we all have these prophecies about the time when the children of the rainbow prophecy, when we'll all be one tribe of nature again, all loving from the same heart, all speaking from the same heart. Because, most of us are good, loving, caring people. And unfortunately, this is taken advantage of by our leaders. This is taken advantage of by our doctors. This is taken advantage of by the leaders of our institutions, our schools. We want to think the better of people. We want to give people the benefit of the doubt. But these these times now are showing us that everyone born in America is a Native American.
Yeah.
And the federal policies reserved for Native Americans are now reserved only for Native Americans, and that's everybody. Everybody born in America
Right.
is a Native American. You're born on this land. You're part of this land. You're on our sacred turtle island, but the
Yeah.
same spirit is here living through you. Doesn't matter if you have the blood of Montezuma or Sequoia. Doesn't matter what blood's through you. It's all our same blood. We're all the same people. We're
Yeah.
I was
all
told that by a Lakota
related.
elder. he told me that I am. He's like, I don't know if you're native by blood, but you are. You know what I mean? Like you are part of this. You are part of this tribe.
We are all one family. And when we realize this, and when we have the courage to take responsibility, that until we respect the rights of our brothers and sisters, of our dogs and cats, they're not going to respect our rights. Because rights and responsibilities is a mutual thing.
Yeah.
We like to think that we don't live on planet Earth at the pleasure of Mother Earth. And so often now I hear people saying humans should worry for the Earth. No, 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 no. The Earth worries for humans.
Yeah.
Earth will be fine.
Earth will
Humans,
take itself
you know,
back. Yeah.
Earth
I
will
say that
heal
all the
itself.
time. I'm like, the earth will endure. We are fucking nothing. Like we were talking to Noli D about that, who's also Native American and has and her in her tribe there was no you can't tell the traditional stories and stuff to everyone. They're just for the tribal people and
Yeah, she's very upset by
yeah,
that because
she was
her
kind of mad
stories
about it.
are gonna die.
And that's what was the point, was the the finiteness of everything human. You know what I mean? It's going to be gone eventually, and pieces of it die all the time. Languages die. People, you know,
Well,
are
I think we're finally reaching a collective societal epiphany that evil does exist. I mean, a lot of people will argue back and forth amongst religions and monotheism or atheism or a higher power. If you're in some type of a recovery program, it's often spoken of as a higher power. But,
Sure.
Ultimately, when it comes to this recognition that there's something greater than yourself, only then do you begin to taste the humility that will allow you to gain your human rights. You see,
Mm-hmm.
you
And your
gain
respect
human
for everything.
rights
Yeah.
to yourself when you're humble enough to grant rights to what lives around you, But I think, particularly when it comes to sharing the knowledge and the old stories, this is a serious point of contention. I mean, I know the songs and the stories I could sing, but I would never sing them on a camera. But I mean, there's certain things that we don't do uh, in front of a camera,
Right.
But, I think that has more to do with the recognition that you have to deal with someone that's no longer in the hypnosis of their own self worship and in the hypnosis of their own self perceived dominion and absolute power. Because if you're not dealing with someone that's humiliated themselves to the point that they can say, I'm related to this dog and I'm related to this cat, and they have just as much of a soul beating in their circulatory system and respiratory system as I do.
Yeah.
And for some
Yeah.
religious people that they say, well, what are you, an animist? Do you worship animals? No, it's not a man. It's not
It's not a matter of
bowing
worship.
down and worshiping.
We are all
No.
animals, though. I
It's
mean,
it's the knowledge that you are an animal yourself. That the being that you are is no different than anything else that exists on this planet. Whether
Well,
it's a blade of grass or a fucking, an elephant. It's like it's all the
and
same.
I feel like mycelium is like it,
I
it
think
is the
that's like a
biggest,
sentient thing,
like
like
connector.
our
It's
human
Mother Earth,
consciousness.
like it's her veins. You know what I mean? Like mycelium, it connects and speaks to each other. Like
I
it,
think
It
the
does some
best way
amazing
to put
stuff.
it is this. In the English language, in the theistic tradition, higher power or God or creator God is kind of thought of this, sky being or God created the heavens and earth, and God is an
Right.
extraterrestrial, right? By
Yeah.
definition, not of this earth. Um, and
Yeah, that's
when I
that's
talk,
something that people don't talk about. It's
when I
crazy.
talk about God or spirit, it's not so much about a commonly held belief and agreeing to the same nomenclature for a higher power or higher being. What we're talking about is the common life force
Right.
that we're
Yep.
all sharing together. So it's not
Mhm.
about an individual belief or an individual religion. It's like I see with the ocean, hearing the ocean waves and the vibrations of that and seeing how everything reacts to that, being in the woods and hearing the coyote and seeing what animals scatter and run about and how they react to that. It's seeing
Right.
the vibrations in nature and how
Yeah.
you're connected to creation, how you're a part of creation. And so the last thought is this: Thanksgiving will always be a Native American tradition in the United States for one reason alone, and that is our spiritual path. What you would call an English prayer, which is kind of like, well, I was raised Catholic, not Catholic anymore, but you know, a prayer request where, hey God, I know you made heavens and earth and done all these things for all this time, but I got this person that's sick and I need some help paying these bills, and I got a whole to-do list for God in my prayer request list today.
Sure.
And that's kind of like a Christian way of thinking of praying to God. Hey God, what else can you do for me today? What have you done
Yeah.
for me lately? I'm going to sing Janet Jackson now, but the Cherokee way is, or the and which is common with most First Nations that I'm aware of, is it's you're never asking for new stuff. You're just giving thanks. Every day begins with Thanksgiving. Every day ends with Thanksgiving. Every single day of a Native American's life is a day of Thanksgiving. So, one day out of every single year, the United States of America says, yeah, we'll have a day of Thanksgiving. But Black Friday's the day after, so get back to shopping. But you
Yeah.
can meet
So
with your family
capitalism.
and celebrate family and food and everything that matters. And so Thanksgiving, I do feel like the essence of Native American spirituality is alive and well in Thanksgiving, in that you're feeding everyone around you and you're giving thanks for what truly matters in life.
Right.
And for us, that's every morning, every afternoon, every night, every before we go to bed. That's
As it
every day.
should be.
Giving thanks
Yeah.
for the rocks, giving thanks for the trees, giving thanks for the four-leggeds, the two-leggeds, the birds, the fish, giving thanks for everything. God, whatever you do, just thanks.
Yeah.
And you've already done so much already. Just thanks. I can never thank you enough. And
I
and
wake
that's
up
what it's
every
about.
morning and I think that to myself, I am grateful to be here to have another day. I am just I never take that for granted. I don't take any day that I am given for granted. And every day I try to, just thrive to be better than I was yesterday. And, like just move forward with more compassion and love and, just be
Yeah.
grateful like every single day. Like not everybody gets that same, not everybody wakes up. You don't know if you're going to go to sleep and not wake up again.
No. I like the fact that you don't know. Like it's because eventually you're just gonna be like, oh fuck. Oh dang it, God! Thanks, man. I was hoping I'd be here when I woke up. You could just treat every day like, oh, it was a gimme. It was like, oh, I had another one. Sweet.
Yeah.
I think after a certain point in your life, you get to there. You know what I mean? If you're like in your 50s and you start thinking about it a lot harder than you did when you were in your 20s, you're like, oh well, shit, another day, woo. And do a little Homer fucking woohoo.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, I
like,
really appreciate you inviting me on here, and it's been such a
oh
pleasure to
my
talk about all
gosh,
this
I'm so
It's been a
history and
blast.
grateful.
everything. There's
It's been
so
a
much
blast.
more to cover, and there's so much more to talk about.
Oh my
And
gosh, anytime
We
you want to
must do
come
it.
really
We
on.
look
must do
forward
this.
to
Yeah.
really look
Yeah.
forward to picking this up again. You know, I deliver food from pretty much 5 to 10 in the evenings most of the week, but we're all night owls around here, so I'm sure we can hook up again
Heck yeah.
Any
Friday night or
day, you
Saturday
just
night.
tell us, and we
Um,
will plan it.
Yeah.
But the main thing I want to tell everyone is, if no one else told you today, I love you.
Oh,
Hey, we love
And
you too, Yona.
I love you. I love
Thanks
all
for
of
coming
you.
on, man.
I'm
But
so grateful that
I know there's a
we
lot
have
of other
this
people
space.
watching this on YouTube. There's a lot of people out there across the interwebs, and this has been a very stressful 2 years. A lot of people are starved for contact. A lot of people are starved for conversation. A lot of people are starved for affection. But I speak from the heart when I say this. I truly love you all. And I know you
Oh,
feel the
Love
love.
you, man.
And I feel your love too. Together we're growing together, getting stronger. And guess what? We're
absolutely.
winning. You're on the winning side if you're here.
Beautiful, man.
Absolutely.
You have a
Oh,
great
gosh.
night, man. We'll talk to you.
We will
Well,
talk
we
to
don't
you
say
soon.
goodbye in Cherokee. We say "do which means I'll see you again.
We'll see you
Absolutely.
again.
Say that again so I remember. Okay, say it again.
Do da go hung.
Go
Don't
da
go
go hun. Like hung
Do
or hung.
da
Do-
go hung.
Do da go hung. I think I got
Yep.
it.
Nice.
Do da go hung. Yep.
Thank you
Do da
so
go hung.
much. I love you
Thanks, man.
guys. Namaste,
Well,
fam.
I'll probably catch up with you guys tomorrow night if you want.
Sweet.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Let's plan it.
Absolutely.
I'm down.
Mwah. We love you. We
All
will
right.
see you guys
And
tomorrow.
I'll send you a link of that Colorado song I was talking about.
Yeah,
to
dude.
your Twitters there.
Definitely.
Yeah, and we'll put everything. We make sure that whatever links are put in the chat or whatever, we put those. I make Steve go back and put them in the description so we can
So
find
if anybody has
anything.
links to share, please share them, and I will link them.
And,
in
and
the
one quick
description.
word for anyone watching that is wanting to learn the Cherokee language, there are completely free Cherokee language lessons available that you can enroll in with the Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma. Their website is www.cherokee.org. They're located in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Everything there is 100% free. There are other 100% free resources available online, and as we meet more, I'll get all that stuff out to you for free. You can go online and pay a lot of money for stuff, but why pay for it when you can get it for free? Yona will get
That's
it to you for
cool.
free. I just want everyone to learn. If you want to learn, learn.
Yeah.
You're
I think
beautiful.
that's awesome. You're a
I'm
beautiful
so
man.
glad that we
Thanks for coming on.
came across each other, and I was like, Yona is like, we need to be in touch with Yona.
Yes.
Like I felt like that.
We were drawn.
That we were like, Yona is he has things to teach us.
Well, I'm rather camera shy, but I know that what the path that I'm led down, and the people that I get to meet in my path, we're not put there out of chance. And so I speak about the great mystery, because no matter how smart you are, no matter how much science and book knowledge and common sense and street knowledge you have, there's still going to be things that are part of the giant mystery that you just can't explain away. There are some things that are beyond thought. It's a feeling.
Yeah.
It's a feeling. And we can talk about that feeling and maybe understand, I know that feeling you're talking about, but it's beyond thought.
That
It's
feeling
something that
is the
involves
vibration.
the soul.
You can acknowledge it exists, but you can't explain what it is or exactly, but you can acknowledge it.
That
you
feeling,
can say, yes, I know what that feeling is, but I cannot put that in
is
words.
the vibration, it's the wave-based particles, man, going doing the
For
thing.
sure. Oh
Well,
my
I
gosh.
can't speak for
can't
other
wait.
tribes. I can't speak for other tribes. I can't speak for other Cherokee, but I know I speak, and I know that this sentiment is shared amongst most everyone I've ever talked and been with, and that is, you know, we're still here, we're still alive. Um, Native Americans are treated much like dogs in that we have to show our American Kennel Club papers to show that we're a pure blood, you know.
Right.
But the truth is, you can be 99% Cherokee by blood and not speak a word of Cherokee, and 1% of Cherokee by blood and be fluent in Cherokee and practice it. So, when it comes to, you could be Irish and not speak a word of Gaelic and never celebrate St. Patrick's Day. Same thing,
Right.
It's not so much what your genetic code is in your veins, as in how you would teach your own children. What type of moral and ethic do you live by? What
Yeah.
language do you think in? What language do you want to teach in? What language do you feel in? And
Those
just
those
because you've only
questions.
spoken English your whole life doesn't
Yeah.
mean that you can't dream in other languages. Because I'm sure people will chime in. Yeah, there's people that's had dreams in other languages that, like, I don't even understand what that language was in my dream, and I don't even speak it. But
Right.
it's true.
But
It
it was
happens.
it was beautiful, and that absolutely happens. That's what I was saying earlier. I thought, like, the idea of, if this is totally hypothetical, stupid question, but everybody that had the ambition to leave, and say the slave trade thing wasn't such a big deal, but people wanted to integrate into other places and just explore the world, like the romantic vision that they fucking sell us in school of conquistadors. You know what I mean? If they were actually like mercenaries, and they're all, they're just religious people without, a fucking crazy agenda to take over the fucking planet. If it wasn't like that, and the indigenous people and all their knowledge, that, a bunch of it has been lost, you know what I mean, about the great mystery and how things interact, and how people, you know how people and plants and, biology and everything works together. You know what I mean? All of those secrets seem to have been unlocked at different points, in the
Hmm.
in the within the millennia, right? So it makes me wonder. I think about that, like, if something as practical as that, responsibility to treat every other living thing with respect, was a principle that was always applied and never abandoned. You know what I mean? How beautiful could our existence be? You know what I mean? Just like levels and levels
Well,
and levels
there
better.
there are
People would just
so
be
many
so
of
much more
us.
enlightened.
There are so many of us spread across so many different tribes, whether they're members of enrolled tribes or not, whether they live on the res or not. We've been spread out all across the country, and I'd mentioned that you look in the dictionary under the term and it'll say it was a colloquialism that came into use or in the 1840s. Well, it's a Cherokee word for yes, and the Cherokee diaspora began with the Trail of Tears because at first we were concentrated into camps, right?
Right.
And
Oh my
our
god.
range was shrunk down. Think Palestine, then
Yeah.
1948, then 1967, then today. Same thing with the Cherokee
It's like
Nation.
that
Chopped
same
away,
exact
nibbled away
formula.
until there's
Genocide
nothing.
plays out the same way every time.
But then we went to Oklahoma, and then we just scattered to the wind. There's California Cherokee. There's Washington State Cherokee. There's Vermont Cherokee. Cherokee are the most populated North American tribe today, and we're spread out, and that began after the Trail of Tears, after 1837. We spread out all across the country, and now, still to this day, any American, you say and they know you are agreeing with them. That means yes.
Affirmative.
Uh-huh.
That's amazing, though. that
Noli
that
just came in
commonality,
too.
man. You just, you're spreading light and wisdom, bro. Thank you for handling that.
Noli, you need to let me know if you can come on tomorrow night with Yona. Noli is in the chat.
Hawa.
Noli, she's in the chat, and she's Native American too.
Ostan. Wow. Osionoli. Oshigazan.
See, yeah, that would be awesome, you guys, because we actually have the StreamYard thanks to Noli. She reached out to me and was very excited to let me know that she wanted to give me like the admin privileges so I could do this.
Yeah, those are my brothers and sisters of the totem pole up there. You should really read some of the words of Chief South Seattle. Seattle. I think it was.
Yeah, Lucky's tied to Washington State. That's where she's born from.
Yes, Seattle. Was he Squamish? Squamish?
Oh yeah, it's quite. I can never say it right. Yeah, there's Mukilteo. Mukilteo is one of the one of my favorite places that my dad used to take me to.
Well, I really look forward to tomorrow night. Unfortunately, I do have to jump off here and get the babies in bed. But I send nothing but love and positive vibes. Don't go hunt. Nah, ski when you go stop. Many blessings, my friends.
Many blessings, brother. I love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, y'all.
Love you guys.